There's that bell once again. We got some fun shit today. Being a serial killer aficionado, such as myself, your podcast host, Adam, and...
What do they call that? That's got to have, like, a weird kink name to it. Like, autoerotic asphyxiation, that, like, being choked, or that's the jerking off with a belt around your neck. There's got to be something that... And serial killers are hot right now. And I don't mean, like, physically attractive. I mean, like...
No, literally, when they're remade, they're made with hotter people.
Yeah, well, I guess some of them. But, yeah, like, everyone seems to love hearing about serial killers. So why don't we do a little talking about them?
Yeah, that silky smooth voice that you just heard. That guy over to my right, to my stage left, he is the verbal Patrick Ewing to my John Starks. He puts his podcast gravy onto my mashed potatoes, and he's actually in the running for the 2024 Cold Ass White Boy of the Year in podcasting. That's Professor Chris.
Hey everyone, how's it going?
That was bad. Hey everyone, how's it going? That's what every podcast host says. We're supposed to be different.
Yo.
That's why we're talking about the Zodiac Killer, because we want to be different. Because there's a lot of history podcasts that'll do special wars and shit like that. World War II. We do a lot of World War II. We also got to let our hair down and start talking about some people that are just killing folks at random. And in this case, I think just to get attention.
Yeah, based on kind of what we're going to talk about today, like, definitely a weird progression to how this one went down. And in kind of the same vein, I think isn't the Zodiac kind of known as, like, America's Jack the Ripper? Isn't that what they call it or something?
Yeah, something along those lines. But he is Jack the Ripper 2.0.
But like Jack, never solved as far as this goes. So someone got away. Like, no one was even put in jail, like, wrongly. Like, they didn't even get, like, the wrong guy.
Yeah.
Like, no one got caught for doing this. We're going to talk about essentially, like, the prime suspects. We're going to cover it all, nuts to butts. And I guess without any further bullshit, remember, guys, rate, review, subscribe,
5 stars.
comment, follow, absorb.
Yeah, just love us. Love us as much as we love you.
All that good shit. And without further ado, getting into the Zodiac. Okay, set the stage for me. Where's this all taking place?
We're in the Bay Area, right around San Francisco. We're going to just kind of be bouncing around the Bay Area as far as that goes. We're going to go up into Napa Valley a little bit. But it's the late 60s, and I don't know if everybody knows this, but the peace and love movement of the 60s was just basically like home centered around San Francisco.
Yeah, was San Francisco also where, like, Haight-Ashbury and where Manson was kind of in the early parts?
Manson spent some time up there. He spent a lot more time down in Hollywood. But yeah, like you mentioned, Haight-Ashbury, Ken Kesey, the acid tests are going on at this point in time.
So, what was it called? Fuck.
Oh, God damn it. The
Midnight Climax
CIA one that we did?
Yes. Midnight Climax.
COINTELPRO.
There you go.
But it was an area of change. It was an area of revolution. Hippies ruled the world, or at least San Francisco, sort of, to an extent. I find myself falling on two different sides with hippies. I don't really mind the stuff that they do, but I also like to shower, so it's sort of a...
I think that name is kind of... I don't think that name really applies. Oh, actually, yes, that name still does apply, but I feel like it's kind of like using hipster. Hipster kind of took the place of that, didn't it?
Yeah, except for hipsters, I don't know if they do a whole lot of cool stuff. But it was sort of ripe for a situation where terror could really cause a big kerfuffle among the people, because if
I like
you,
how you refer to like a string of serial murders as a kerfuffle. They had a slight kerfuffle down in Northern California.
well, and I'm not saying that this was something that was just a throwaway, but I probably would think in the hustle and bustle of San Francisco in the 60s, there was going to be a lot more murder going on. And there was going to be people dying every day of a shooting, something like that, just because it was a wild place to be.
I mean, there was still crime within the city and everything.
Yeah, so I don't know if these incidences would have like stood out in everybody's minds had the Zodiac not put his little stank on it and started doing some crazy shit along with the murders to really put them in the front page. Because even this first one,
thought about that.
yeah, even this first one that we're going to talk about takes place on Lake Herman Road in Benicia, California.
Yeah, so essentially, out of kind of to give you the Cliff Notes version before we get into the details. So this takes place between December 1968 and October 1969. So it's a period of 10 months. And during that time, there are 5 known victims, but essentially 8 to 9 attempts of people that could have been possibly victims. So there were a few survivors regarding this. Unfortunately, that really didn't help him get found out or anything like that, which is kind of weird. But yeah, so going back to, what was it? You said December 20th, 1968, Benicia, California, on Lake Herman Road. Just a couple kids wanting to fuck, trying to make it honest. David Arthur Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen, age 17 and 16. Just a couple horny kids trying to find some alone time out on Lover's Lane.
Well, and it's a story as old as time. Betty Lou and David had kind of started canoodling at school a little bit, got to know each other. Huh?
Jack and I.
Yeah. Betty Lou wasn't allowed to date yet. Her sister had had a very bad experience prior to that, so her parents were a little wary. She would go out with friends. When she would go say she was going out with friends, she'd go out and meet David. Finally, they said, you guys can hang out. You're allowed to have a boyfriend now. I don't know if it was turning 16 or anything like that. So this was like their first official date. And their first official date, they were supposed to go to some diner or something like that. I don't know if they ever ended up there. There's not really a record of it. But at 10:15 p.m., which seems pretty late.
I was just thinking about that. Yeah, so like she's still 16, he's 17. Even if you're just starting to allow her to date and everything, that sounds, unless they were just like, fuck it.
Yeah.
Because I guess we don't know technically, but it still seems very late.
Well, and you got to think.
Asking for fucking trouble.
And you got to think, your first official date, and you're going to push the limits of time. But regardless of that situation, 10:15, they pulled off the road onto Lake Herman Road, and they called it a Lover's Lane. It's like a little turnout along the side of the road, and there's like some sort of an access road behind it. Not very big. Not something that you would be thinking of where it's like a big horseshoe and you can park back in. From the road, you're very visible. Which,
yeah, it was just a place literally to pull off and park. Like if you've ever watched like that 70s show, it's literally just, at the point, it's literally just an area to park.
But there's probably dirt road like 20 feet off the road, and that's it. Like there's no big parking area. It's just basically like a turnout.
Yeah.
Which in my head, before I really saw pictures of it. You're looking
for places that aren't, the whole point with Lover's Lanes is they were not like a designated spot, and the town was like, yeah, if you're going to fuck in your car, go out and do it here. They were secret places because cops would drive to all those other places. That's where you see like the thing when cops were walking up with their flashlights and knocking on the window and being like, hey, and you see the kids trying to get dressed in a car. Lovers' Lanes were secretive places that they could go out. So yeah, it was just out off these isolated roads, little turnoffs.
They weren't secretive. I'm telling you, you could see from the road, you can see this turnout. You can see the car there.
I know you could, but what I'm saying is the whole point is every night or every couple nights, cops aren't driving down every single street, especially if it's out of town a little bit. So they were taking a chance that it could be found out. But if someone is just driving by like John and Jane Smith, they're just going to keep driving. They're not going to come up and cause problems for like a bunch of kids making out or anything like that.
I see the windows fogged up. I think that's a...
You're a fucking buzzkill. If you're driving by and you got no fucking... Get the fuck out of here. What's wrong with this goddamn world.
So Mom's Nash Rambler that Faraday drives Jensen off to this little lover's lane in. There were passersby that said at 10:15 at night on an unusually cold night in December where the ground was frozen, every time they drove by there wasn't any frost on the car. Probably because they're making it hot on the inside. You think that's what's going on?
Why are you so against this?
I'm just saying. I'm not against it. What I'm saying is it's something where, like, there's some activity going on, but this takes place in such a fast amount of time that in a matter of, like, 10 minutes, this whole event takes place to the point where somebody could drive by and see the car and see that there was no frost on it, so it hadn't been sitting there for very long, to the point of somebody else driving by after the murders had occurred, and it's still the exact same.
Correct. I think it's an isolated road, though. I think you're maybe thinking this is like a busy thoroughfare. They're isolated roads.
All right. I guess
We're never gonna know.
No.
So
there's no way of knowing either.
Between that time of 10:15 and 11 p.m., this is when they were actually found. So how they were found was David was shot in the head, still in the car, like halfway. It kind of might have looked like he was trying to get in or out. Betty was shot 5 times in the back and found 28 feet from the car. So obviously you're thinking shot in the back, you're away from the car, you're running away, and you just get shot in the back a bunch of times. They said, I'm trying to remember if this is where they may have found some type of like tire tracks. Or they brought, okay, that was the next one.
They said there was no tire tracks because the ground was frozen, so they didn't have any footprints. Footprints will actually come in later in a way where it sounds like we're going to have a break in the case, and then it just turns into no fucking break in the case. But, it was a very cold night. This happened very quickly. Faraday, the shot actually went in, I think it was below his lower ear, and then traveled up into his brain. She was shot in the back left side, like you said, 28 feet away from the car. So he must have got the jump. Like
she.
Well, the fact that she had time to run away.
No. I meant
it was a fuck joke. I get it.
I thought you were referring to killer. I was just making a joke. Like, yeah, they're never really women.
But he took out the male first with one clean shot. As Darlene's getting away, he fires 5 shots into her back. They said that they found 10 casings, so that would say give or take 3 casings. If it was 5 in her back, 1 in his, 4 casings, because they found 10. So there were 4 bullets that were unaccounted for.
Okay.
There were 2 bullets that were found lodged in the car. So that means that there were 2 shots that were either to scare them out of the car or to miss when he was firing at her.
I think he just was firing into the car. The way it is, because it seems so chaotic that if he's just firing and getting recoil, he could just hit the car twice. The other 2, if you're firing, he's firing a fucking pistol. So they're not that, like, despite like seeing it in fucking movies and stuff, pistols are not accurate that far away. A short barrel makes for an inaccurate shot. That's why they're used for like close up shit. So as someone is running away from you, he's probably just fire. And the fact that he hit her 5 times and only found 10, he must have tagged her like pretty early on. She kept trying to go. Had he missed her off to one side or the other, they're not finding those fucking bullets. They're way past.
But they found the 10 casings.
I know.
So there would have had to have been 2 bullets unaccounted.
Correct. So yeah, so he apparently goes up to the passenger side, because was he driving? Oh no, he was driving. So he goes up to the driver's side, shoots there. She gets out of the passenger side and just takes off that way. It's not like she's running around the car or anything. She's heading away.
I have an alternate theory, and we'll get to it here in a second. I believe that he fired a couple rounds into the car to try to scare them out, and for reasons that we'll find out later on. I think he wanted to hunt these people from the start, and then he realized that a handgun this way probably wasn't the best way to hunt somebody.
Did they say anything about where the shell casings were found? Because if they would have found them all over on her side, or all over on his side, if I'm thinking about it correctly, if it's a traditional pistol, it's going to eject the shell casings over to his right.
Away from the shooter?
Yeah, kind of. Not like a big distance, but if he shot at them from behind to scare them at all, then they would have found shell casings over more to the right from even that direction. So over toward like the right rear of the car.
I didn't hear where they found him.
Okay.
Just the fact that she got 29 feet away before she started getting shot at makes me think that she had a little time to escape.
That's not what that's saying. She was found 28. That doesn't count the time that she first got hit, She could have kept running. She could have kept running if they were shots. I didn't see where behind.
Back and to the left is where she got hit.
Okay,
so she got shot in the back.
Okay, so a couple hit you up in the upper. What I'm saying is you have forward momentum. 28 feet is not very far.
Okay.
So you're saying that she just got shot and instantly went down right there at 28 feet?
I think she was running away from the car. She was able to escape the car to get going.
Yes, but what I'm saying is it's very easy for her to get shot 15 feet into that and being able to continue traveling another 10 feet, being at 25, and then get shot 4 more times, and then literally, like, she could have crawled. Like, you're just trying to get out of that situation in any way you can. If you're still mobile, then you're trying to get there. I think she was shot probably closer, and she kept going, and he just alerted. Because had she been shot, you can't fire off, you can't be like, bop, 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 and be accurate like that. So he probably tags her. She's still moving. He shoots her again. She's still kind of moving. You wouldn't just pull out five shots like that. He would have been firing at her as she was still traveling because he couldn't put 5 shots into her. And they would have also stated in the information that she was executed because they would have been able to determine that from the entry wounds and the closeness of it. So I believe she was hit. She may have gotten a running start and then he turns to fire on her, but she was definitely hit before the 28 feet. 28 feet is where she got shot the 5th time at the least.
Okay.
Just the way you said, for some reason, I'm just
She was trying to escape, and she got shot.
Correct. The way you phrased it just sounded wrong to me.
That's what I said, was she was trying to escape, and she got shot.
Correct, but you made it sound like you said she got shot 28 feet away from the car, and that's where she went down for, like, the first shot.
No, she made it 28 feet.
Okay.
So, a lady named Stella Borges, I don't know how to pronounce. I don't think that's Californian. Bourgeois could be. She found them shortly after 11, called the Solano County Sheriff's Department to come out and investigate. They came out and investigated. They talked to a kid who maybe had an argument with Faraday earlier on about trying to date Betty Lou. He was cleared. They just chalked it up to like just a murder. That was just what they called it. They said that it was they were still going to go through and investigate it, but it was just an unsolved murder at that point with no motivation.
One thing, like, I have to, like, kind of remind myself to think about this. You think about stuff in terms of when you're reading this, what technology might have been like today or even a little bit more modern. So you're like, okay, well, if they were found at 11 o'clock, that means that the police were out there or the person that found them called the police right away. No. Someone has to be found shortly after 11. She then has to either get back into town, go to the police station, try to find a payphone, get back to her house to call, and then tell the police what happens for them to then get out to that site.
I mean, they're probably not sending the full investigative unit at that point. It's probably an officer and maybe an ambulance to go see. Mm-hmm. I think they did say that when they pulled up on the scene, Faraday still had a heartbeat, but he didn't live to see the.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, think of it then versus now.
Oh yeah, now it would have been pretty immediate, and depending on how far out into the country, like you were talking about, where the isolated road was, it could take them an extra 20 minutes to get out there with anything.
Yeah, 20 minutes back, 20 minutes. Yeah.
It could be an hour, 2 hours at least before they get out there. But this just gets chalked up as like, hey, it's California out here. Sometimes this shit happens.
It's a crime of passion.
Yeah. It could have really been anything. It could have just been somebody firing indiscriminately in the car. Then they look at the scene. They're like, well, this looks like more of an intentional thing, but I guess we'll see. And this is December 20th, 1986. We're going to fast forward all the way to July 4th, 1969, which don't like crediting serial killers for what they do. Brilliant strategy to do this on the 4th of July. Because what's one thing that Americans love to do on the 4th of July?
Well, fireworks.
Fireworks and fire guns sometimes to celebrate. So?
Well, and the other thing, if you're thinking about it, this isn't a string. Jack the Ripper was like a course of 4 months.
Yeah, 3-4 months, I think.
3-4 months. And it was like, boom. Boom, but at least once every couple weeks, and then a couple of them were like a week apart, right?
Yeah.
So there's a space here of almost 6.5, 7 months, 7.5 months.
Yeah, right in there. It would have been about 6.5 months.
So I mean, this allows time essentially for this case to kind of probably have some attention or focus off of it. And also, this is still chalked up to just like you said, a regular murder.
Yeah, there's no motivation behind it. No reason to think that this could ever be an intentional serial killer in the making. And actually, these two sites weren't too far apart. We're going to talk about the Blue Rock Springs murders now. It was only 4 miles from the first murder site.
Yeah.
6.4 kilometers for our European fans. I'm sure they have murders over there too. But not very far away in this situation, which seems pretty surprising that they wouldn't. I guess there wasn't enough time to really link them before they find out what goes on.
Yeah.
But as far as that goes, in Vallejo, California, July 4th, 1969, Michael Mageau was 19, Darlene Ferris was 22.
Farron or Ferris?
Farron. Farron's right. You were right. She has herself a little kid. She has herself a husband at home. She goes out on a jaunt with Michael Mageau. I'm sure they were probably just going to play like, I don't know, dice in the car.
Yeah.
Could be something like that. That.
He listens to me.
Maybe they were going to work on the first time they did the pile driver position. Probably. I'm going to lean on that one. Farron picks up Michael Mageau. They drive out to Blue Rock Springs. Like I say, it's 4 miles away from the first murder site.
It's a park, right?
I think it's
someplace that has a parking lot-ish.
Probably somewhere like that. Maybe just a dirt lot. There's a second car that pulls in. It parks right next to them, drives away, returns 10 minutes later, pulls up right behind him. There's a man that exits the car and approaches the passenger door, which is Mageau's door because she came and picked him up. They said that there was a flashlight that shined into their eyes at night, basically blinding them. As soon as he does that, he blind fires 5 times inside the vehicle with a 9mm Luger. He hits both victims. He then walks away. I don't know if it was Mageau trying to scramble into the back seat, but then returns and fires 2 additional shots into each victim.
They said he heard him. So, and I think one of the things that they kind of thought may have happened because the windows were, I think, down a little bit, because you can tell because they're obviously not going to move up or down once that happens. And also if there's broken glass,
And it's a hand crank, so it'd be a real bitch to try to pull
so
up.
I think they said the windows were down, so there may have been, either they were already down, or someone coming out of the car with a flashlight that what's your instant thought?
Cops.
So you're rolling the window down to try to explain what's going on and everything. It's coming up to his side. And then, literally, flashlight right in his eye, and the guy just starts firing.
These 2 shots would be kind of, I don't know, I would say sort of a little entry piece into what we're going to get later. One of the shots hits Mageau in the foot. They couldn't really figure that out. It gets explained later. As far as this goes, there was I don't remember if it was an officer, it could have been a ranger or something, because I think it was near a park.
Did he shot both of them twice when he came
Yep,
back?
he came back and double tapped them both.
Yeah, so I think he got in the backseat. He made a noise like he was calling out for her to see, because he thought he was walking away or something like that. And of course, you're fucking hysterical. You don't know what the fuck is going on at that point. And he heard that and he came back and shot them both twice. So crazily enough, this guy that got shot, I don't know how many times, ends up surviving.
Yeah. As the killer leaves, there was an officer or somebody that was a couple miles away. He heard the first few shots, and he's like, that sounded like fireworks, whatever. It's the 4th of July. Mm-hmm. Then he hears 2 more, and he's like, well, those sounded like gunshots. And then he hears 2 more. He's like, those were definitely gunshots. Then he said that he was close enough to hear tires squealing as somebody was leaving the parking lot at a high rate of speed. Goes down, ends up finding the 2 victims. Farron dies, I think, at the scene. I don't think she made it to the hospital. Mageau ends up surviving. He describes a male, 26 to 30, 195 to 200 pounds, 5'9", white, short, light brown, curly hair. Pretty good description, I would assume, for somebody to try to write up.
Crazily enough, all basing it off of just the time you had the flashlight. I'm not saying it's a bad account or anything like that. Even more impressive to the fact that you somehow in all of that could actually see and try to make things out.
Yeah, it's crazy just how much information he was able to pull from probably just maybe a 5-second glance at what's going on. Because, when you get that flashlight in your eyes, there's not a whole lot that you're going to be able to see.
No, your eyes are used to nothing but dark, and then all of a sudden they're getting hit with light.
And that was totally intentional, I'm sure. We didn't have to wait to figure out who actually did that, because there's a call that comes into the police station at 12:40 a.m., so about, give or take, 40 minutes, 30 minutes after this happens. It's to dispatch at the police station, and they claim responsibility for the shooting. This call, this call is not verbatim, and we'll explain it after. So the Zodiac call on July 5th, I want to report a double murder. Shit. I want to report a double murder. If you go 1 mile east on Columbus Parkway to the public park, you will find kids in a brown car. They were shot with a 9mm Luger. I killed those kids last year as well. Goodbye. Probably a pretty scary call to get. Good. You like that?
Yeah.
Little voice work this time. Let's see how it goes. I can't do impressions of people from other countries. I do okay murderers, though.
Okay. You probably studied murders a lot more than you have other people talking from other countries.
And this is probably fairly scary for this lady. And also back at this time, you would think, well, this guy called in, so we're going to be able to record this. We're going to blast this guy's voice, his cadence, everything that he sounds like on the news everywhere.
Yeah, we got him.
Every radio station.
We got this guy.
He's going to be caught. This guy made the ultimate mistake. One of two things. First off, back in these days, they didn't have the recording equipment to record phone calls coming in on 911 lines. So, big issue number one.
Was this still the switchboard pulling it out?
Probably, man.
Hold please. Hold please.
I don't know when that all changed over, but I'm assuming if it wasn't that, it was something very close. Number two, she was trying to get more details out of him, so instead of writing down exactly what he told her, she was trying to ask questions over the top of him. So there's no even like full written account of what he said. This is just her.
Stop interrupting me. I'm trying to tell you about these murders.
Shut up, woman. But we have our first contact between this serial killer that just took credit for this murder and the murders back in December. So along with that, things get really, really scary. But the scarier thing about it was this call that came in was actually 3 blocks from police headquarters, made from a payphone. So by the time they figured out where it could have come from, they realized, oh shit, this guy was very, very close to the police station, almost in like a taunting fashion.
Because the instant priority is like get everyone out there to the scene, and it's not like they're probably like someone traced the call.
Yeah.
But that information comes back. How long does it fucking take for you to like trace a call at that point back then? Even if it's 5, 10, 15 minutes, how many miles down the road? Which way did the guy go?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's probably not a quick
Ballsy
process.
Move.
It depends. Is it a ballsy move because he did it so close, or is it not a ballsy move because he could be living 2 blocks away? So by the time he hangs up, he could be back in his flat. You're none the wiser.
I don't think you're killing that close to home.
Well,
we're going to find out. Like, obviously, if this guy didn't get caught, there's a method to the madness.
Yeah, there absolutely is. And I think that he did this during a time when you could really get away with shit like this. So that's a very scary incident that happens July 31st. So this exact same month, kind of like
are you talking about the murder being a scary incident or the call coming in?
I would say the call coming in, taking credit for both of them to then link them. Because like we talked about with the first one, all that was until that call came in was this is an isolated incident that we don't know what happens.
Yeah.
Now you're putting these 2 murders together and you're thinking, holy shit, does this guy have a third plan? Does he have a fourth plan? Where's he going to strike next? So that puts a lot of fear, I'm sure, into the police department, but also anybody that finds out about it.
So on August 1st in 1969, just... what would this be, like 25 days later?
Yeah, July 31st is when the letters come in.
Gotcha. So 3 letters are sent to the is it, how do you pronounce it?
Vallejo Times-Herald.
Sorry.
The San Francisco, yeah.
San Francisco Chronicle and San Francisco Examiner. Now, they're pretty much sent the same letters, but they are sent also along with that these basically like cipher grids. And it's basically just a coded message is what it is. And the ciphers were all different between the 3 newspapers. They were supposed to somehow like work together, like each one would share a different piece of the information. And the letter, do you have the letter actually?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the letter starts out, Dear Editor, this is the murder of the 2 teenagers last Christmas, spelled with 2 S's, at Lake Herman, and the girl on the 4th of July near the golf course in Vallejo. To prove I killed them, I shall state some facts that only I and the police know. Christmas, 2 S's again. Number 1, brand name of ammo, Super X. Number 2, 10 shots were fired. Number 3, the boy was on his back with his feet to the car. Number 4, the girl was on her right side, feet to the west. 4th of July, number 1, girl was wearing patterned slacks. The boy was also shot in the knee. Number 3, the brand name of ammo was Western. And then it says, here's a part of a cipher. The other 2 parts of this cipher are being mailed to the editors of the Vallejo Times and the San Francisco Examiner. The Chronicle would be who got this letter. I want you to print this cipher on the first page of your paper. In this cipher is my identity. If you do not print this cipher by the afternoon of Friday, August 1st, or August 69, I will go on a killing rampage Friday night. I will cruise around all weekend killing lone people in the night, then move on to kill again until I end up with 12 people over the weekend.
Lofty
and then
goals.
It's signed, not with a name, but with what is essentially, it's a cross with a circle around it. If you're a rap fan, Public Enemy's logo minus the silhouette, a crosshair.
It's a crosshair reticle or whatever you want to say.
Do you have what the cipher said?
Yeah, so, well, actually, I want to get to how the cipher was broken, because they didn't find out what it said until it was broken.
Well, yeah, okay. So we have to actually, after that, they talk about it. I'm forgetting which one said, I think it must have been the San Francisco Examiner.
The Chronicle ran it on page 4.
Was it the Chronicle that went on page 4?
The Chronicle ran it on page 4, and they also asked for more information because it included like the cipher and everything, and then they did like some dialogue or some text next to it. Yeah, editor's note next to it, asking him for more info to prove his identity of who he was. He was claiming to be the guy that committed these murders.
So we didn't have to wait long, because August 4th, 1969, again, we start out, Dear Editor. Oh, do I do the murder voice for this?
I would do it.
This is going to be a long one. Dear Editor, this is the Zodiac speaking. And this is the first time that he ever refers to himself as the Zodiac. So this is where the whole idea of the Zodiac Killer comes from.
This is August 7th.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, it was postmarked August 4th.
Yeah.
This is the Zodiac speaking. In answer to your asking for more details about the good times I had in Vallejo, I'm sure there's a huh when he wrote that line, I shall be very happy to supply even more material. By the way, are the police having a good time with the code? If not, tell them to cheer up. When they do crack it, they will have me. On the 4th of July, I did not open the car door. The window was rolled down already. The boy was originally sitting in the front seat when I began firing. When I fired the first shot at his head, he leapt backwards at the same time, thus spoiling my aim and hitting him in the knee. He ended up in the back seat, then the floor in the back, thrashing out very violently with his legs. That's how I shot him in the knee. I did not leave the scene, CENE, of the killing with squealing tires and a racing engine as described in the Vallejo paper. I drove away quite slowly so as to not draw attention to my car. The man who told... I'm not going to keep doing that. The man who told the police that my car was brown was a Negro. I gave him my best shot.
Thank you for keeping up as long as you did.
Was a Negro, about 40 to 45, rather shabbily dressed. I was at the phone booth having some fun with the Vallejo cops when he was walking by. When I hung the phone up, the damn something cipher thing to ring that drew his attention to me in my car. Oh, it was when they called back. Last Christmas, again, 2 S's. In that episode, the police were wondering as to how I could shoot and hit my victims in the dark. They did not openly state this, but implied this by saying it was a well-lit night and I could see the silhouettes on the horizon. Bullshit! That area is surrounded by high hills and trees. What I did was tape a small pencil flashlight to the barrel of my gun. If you notice in the center of the beam of light, if you aim at the wall or the ceiling, you will see a black or dark spot in the center of the circle of light about 3 to 6 inches across. When I taped to the gun When taped to the gun barrel, the bullet will strike exactly in the center of the black dot of the light. All I had to do was spray them as if it was a water hose. There was no need to use gun sights. I was not happy to see that I did not get my front page coverage. Then, again, the Zodiac sign, there was no address for return. Sounds like an angry man.
Yes.
Sounds like a guy who wants to start to control the narrative of how his murders are going on.
And the way that the letters are sent, because they haven't solved the cipher at this point, so it could actually be just nonsensical fucking doodles. It could make no sense whatsoever. It could be something to burn up time and resources. The way that it does seem kind of reckless, the way he's going about things, the letters and stuff like that, it kind of makes you think oh, he's going to fuck up here soon. This is definitely someone that the police are going to keep getting clues, and they're eventually going to get something on him. They're going to get a fingerprint left on a letter or a piece of hair or some shit like that. Because he does seem kind of the craziness kind of equals recklessness to me. But it's bit. A controlled fucking chaos. It's a really devious fucking mind.
Well, and also the fact that he's not corresponding directly with the police. He's intentionally going to the media who he knows will publish the shit a lot faster than the police telling the newspapers to publish.
And not only that, but I think also by going through them, like you're saying, it's getting out to the public first. It's also having to pass through a series of hands, even if it's a direct recording or the letter and everything like that. It's still getting opened there. There's still possible contamination. And so it's also forcing the police to spend more resources instead of just having them be oh, this just got sent to the precinct.
Well, and not to mention, this is a time when DNA is not a thing. Fingerprinting is a thing, but the deal with fingerprinting is that you need to lift a pretty good print, and you also need to have another set of prints to be able to compare it to. Mm-hmm. So you
gotta be in the system.
Yeah, unless you're already in the system, if they pull a print and they're trying to look through a database, which again is just a binder full of fingerprints, it's not on a computer or anything like that. If they don't have that already, they don't know what to do with your prints. The best that they can hope for is to catch you or investigate you and then match your prints that way.
How would you even do that? I know this is going to take us on a tangent, but thinking about it from that perspective, you are looking essentially at pictures of fingerprints or the fingerprints in a notebook, like you said, and looking to match it with this one. Are you just to have a guy all day that just sits fucking up against, just married to a magnifying glass, or a fucking, what do they call those things that used to project on in libraries for periodicals?
Projectors?
There's something special about them. I can't remember what it's called. But you would essentially put the two fingerprints together, and you would literally just swap out the ones to your left with different pages, and just be does it look the same? Does it look the same? Oh, this one, nope, it looks the same. It looks the same. And then how the fuck do you even know where to begin?
Well, even present day, just my rudimentary understanding of how they do fingerprints is they compare a certain area of a print and look at your dermal ridge design. So you'll pinpoint the left-hand side of a thumb, and you'll look at that left-hand side of a thumb with your magnifying glass. You'll see if there's a swoop in the dermal ridge, your fingerprint, your literal, the skin that raises up. Then they'll compare it to another one. They'll see if those start to overlap or look similar.
So it's a pretty easy process of elimination because they're so distinct and different that people are going to have curves in much different places.
Yeah, but you also have to get a very good print. Because if you don't have a solid print, it's going to be really, really hard to tell.
This is probably the most high thing I've ever actually said on this podcast, but fingerprints are fucking crazy, man.
They are.
Just the concept as creatures that we have these completely individual identifying markers, or at least there's probably more than one individual that has these, but the simple fact that we have just such customized shit on our bodies.
You want me to leave you with just a little tidbit?
Please do.
That's going to fuck with you?
Sure.
I believe that it's an evolutionary adaptation, that our fingerprints used to be much larger ridges, so we were able to grip and walk or climb things.
Oh, yeah.
So over time, as we've had to do that less, those dermal ridges have recessed just into fingerprints instead of gripping.
So many generations down the road, it'll just be smooth?
Yeah.
It makes sense.
I would assume so. And that's, by then, you won't be able to commit a crime without getting caught.
Well,
but
by then we'll have Minority Report. It'll be the fucking precogs that can just see the fucking crimes before they happen.
Yeah, so how did this 408 cipher The Z48 is what they call the Zodiac 408 cipher
'Kay.
because it contained 408 symbols. Who solved it?
Okay, so because they posted these things out in newspapers, you had all these people that were essentially trying to crack it. There were two people. They were from California, right?
Yep. Donald and Betty Hardin.
Donald and Betty Hardin are like two former teachers.
He is a teacher. She's a stay-at-home mom. Before Donald and Betty cracked this, it sent to every governmental agency.
Oh yeah, CIA, FBI,
to crack it.
anyone and everyone for like cryptanalysis and all this kind of
Yes.
stuff. Navy cryptanalysis, Army, like anything and everything they have, they're sending this out. Well, they really enjoyed fucking puzzles and brain teasers, and they end up solving and breaking the cipher of this code. And I think how they did it,
They said it took about 20 hours.
20 straight hours doing it. And how they did it is they were trying to figure out, based on what they knew about him, what would probably be most likely in the cipher. And so they found a double letter, and they just were like, okay, we're going to assume this word is kill because it's got two letters, right? And L is the most common double letter, double consonant in the English language. So they would then put the L's, and then they would have an I and a K because they know what would come before the I and the K. And from there, they would fill it in. It was like a game of goddamn, what do you call it, hangman?
Yeah.
Where you're just trying anything and everything of all, like, what do you think this sentence says?
E's are the most common letter in the English language, so they looked for the most common symbol because they knew that would be E.
And tried that and saw if it made sense. So what they came up with was this. I'm not going to even try the voice, sorry.
Before you read
Should I
this,
just do it in a happy tone? Be like,
before you read this, this is the most bullshit. This man, to me, sounds like he's never touched a woman before.
yeah. I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest. Because man is the most dangerous animal of all. To kill something gives me the most thrilling experience. It is even better than getting your rocks off with a girl. The best part of it is, so there's misspellings too,
Yeah.
like THAE. They will, I die, I will. Were there that many misspellings in it?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I'm just going to kind of read it how it was conveyed. They will die. I will be reborn in paradise, and all those I have killed will become my slaves. I will not give you my name because you will try to slow down or stop my collecting of slaves for my afterlife.
That's a lot there. We want to start with the first line because it sounds like a fourth grader wrote it. I like killing people because it is so much fun. That's like, I like my dog because he loves me and I get to take him on walks. Just the most simple shit in the world. They also said one thing about the cipher compared to the letters. The letters were a little bit more scattered in their writing, whereas these ciphers were lined up so as to think that he probably put like a piece of grid paper below the paper he's making the cipher on so they could be pretty well spaced out. That does two things, because if you have spaces between your letters and you have four letters in a row, you can assume that that's a break for words.
Yeah.
So you also, the fact that this was so evenly spaced, the words were very hard, and that's why there were other letters that
It
would
just
run
looked
into
like
words.
it was letters, so then you had to dictate where the separate words were.
Yeah. This goes back to the first murder that I believe, well, that he said that he committed. The female that was found 29 feet away from the vehicle. He says,
Was that Betty? Yeah, Betty.
because man is the most dangerous animal of all.
That's
Killing
from
is
the
a
most-
wild game.
Yeah, it's from that book, The Most Dangerous Game.
Yeah, but I feel like there was a little desire to hunt, and maybe that's why he let Betty try to get away before he fired on her, to see the sport of actually hunting a human rather than just rolling up and shooting them. I think he realized how hard it was, and that's why his second set of murders, he just popped them in the car and didn't let them get out. That's where I think the two shots that were fired into the car in the beginning.
I can seeing that based on that. I think it was more of him saying man is the most dangerous game, that just like the simple act of trying to hunt and kill a human while you also have other humans then hunting to get you. I think he meant it in that way. I think the simple fact that like he ended up having to shoot her from such a distance. I think he learned from that definitely. I don't think it was intended to let her get that far or even start running. But then he was like, oh, I need to just do this a little bit different next time, so then I don't even have to attempt someone getting away.
There's no chance that this happens.
Because at that point, man, he already intended for no one to be living. So there's already one person at this point. Any chance that person has to get away is time it takes to then try to kill them, and his window of not being caught by someone driving past or hearing this noise shrinks that much more.
Yeah, and I think that we'll talk about it with this next set of killings. I think that's a huge part of why he changes methods.
Yeah.
His next line, it is even better than getting your rocks off with a girl. Comparing a murder to sex is something that a lot of people a lot of serial killers will do, because it's the same kind of gratification. You're not coming in your pants when you're shooting. Maybe you are. I don't know. I've never shot and killed somebody and enjoyed it.
I'm coming, and then I'm getting home and I'm coming more.
But to compare that to a sexual experience means that it's in a different, like, pleasure receptor area of his brain.
Buddy, you're trying to make fucking sense out of spaghetti against the wall here. This person is just going around killing people. They are not in their right mind. They're not going to fucking be crafting Shakespeare.
But just to say that and to make the comparison between sex and killing, there's some sort of gratification that he's getting 100%. From it.
Oh, no, I definitely get the comparison.
Yeah. His next part is the best part, is that when I die, I will be reborn in paradise, and all the lone or stray people, in quotations, they added that, I have killed will become my slaves. I will not give my name because you will try to slow down or stop me from collecting my slaves for my afterlife. This line, out of anything in this whole entire episode, perplexed me the most, because people that do things for religious reasons usually have like a baseline of where it came from. Mm-hmm. And this line to me feels like almost a religious belief, or something that he's kind of crafted his life and this whole mission around. So I searched this phrase a million times because I had heard it before. I realized that I had heard it before because I told you it's what Denzel says to Ethan Hawke on Training Day, mm-hmm. about killing people on duty. They become your slaves in the afterlife. Mm-hmm. Turns out Denzel and Training Day weren't out when this happened, so that was immediately ruled out. Upon much further review, there's an 18th century French writer named Marquis de Sade. And in his 1799 Juliet novel that he writes, there's a line in it that says, it is an article of faith on the island of Borneo that all those persons a man kills will be his slaves in the next world. As a result, the better a man wishes to be served in his death, the more he kills during his life. And this de Sade is actually the reason that we have the word sadist and sadism. So he's he was a man who enjoyed.
Okay, so I'm making. You told me that before we started recording, and I just now made the connection. Which, if this guy, sadism is already an established thing, mm-hmm. or at least a known thing. If he's into sadism, he's obviously then going to go back and study this guy and find this information. Gotcha.
So to study an 18th century French writer, you have to be a very learned man, which also contrasts.
I mean, unless you're just getting into sadism, which then you like this is your David Koresh. If David Koresh would have written a book or something, I don't think you have to be. I think there are aspects of this that are very smart, but so much of it is also seems kind of chaotic with the risk being taken for contacting and everything like that. I just think it's this weird storm of like weird genius, but also complete crazy. But also, if he just is like, oh, well, I'm going to get into sadism, it's directly going to put him in the front of this guy.
Yeah, I just feel like to be able to read and comprehend and understand a 17th century or an 18th century French writer.
Or to create a cipher. I'm not saying he's not learning. He obviously has to have something, yeah.
Yeah, which, again, the way that he writes these things and the way that we've read them, he spells things incorrectly. I don't think that that's... Either he's Charlie Day and he knows he only writes in symbols.
He could have a symbol for comma. He could have anything. Mm-hmm. It could have been just, but the gist of the message ended up getting there.
I think that it was intentional, though. I think the misspelling was certainly to
make them pay attention to all the details, extraneous details. You know, muddy the water with enough bullshit, and they can't find what they're looking for. Well,
yeah, go ahead. Murder number 3.
No, before that, we almost forgot.
Oh yeah.
Also on August 8th. is when the Tate LaBianca murders occurred by the Manson family. Now, I'm not going to go into really any details on this because we're definitely going to cover Charles Manson, the Manson family, so I don't want to talk about it here. The Tate LaBianca murders ended up taking place in Los Angeles, Hollywood.
Yep.
Like
Hollywood Hills, I believe.
And up to this point, because now the Zodiac has a name, I'm sure that, especially with all the other agencies working on this with the cipher and everything, I think the Zodiac had made nationwide news at this point, just because of how strange it was with the letters and all that shit. Well, this takes a lot of the fucking wind out of the Zodiac fucking sails. Everyone is now completely focused on the Manson family, the Tate LaBianca murders, where essentially 3 members of the Manson family broke into Sharon Tate's house and killed everybody like at a party.
I think it was 5.
5 members. So all of a sudden, all the focus now goes over from San Francisco, and now definitely nationwide news.
Oh, yeah.
That's taking over everything.
Well, and the question becomes, is Manson the Zodiac, or is the Zodiac a member of the Manson family? Are these two things connected? I don't know. I think San Francisco and Los Angeles are like 4 hours apart.
Yeah, even if they were, a fucking state apart, just from the dates and everything and how high profile it is, did this guy go from just killing couples to now trying to kill someone famous? There was so much stuff going on between these cases and everything that there had to be some spillover.
You got to imagine everybody in Los Angeles is helping out the guys in San Francisco. Like, God, I'm so glad we're not running point on a case like this. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, the Tate murders happen. And you're like, oh, we got something too. Is this your guys?
Who fucking said it? Who fucking jinxed this?
Well, you don't get to wear jeans on Friday, Brad.
Yeah. Well, not to be outdone or retired or anything like that. September 7th, 1969 rolls around. Lake Berryessa.
27th, right?
Yeah, 27th.
Okay. I thought you said 7th.
Lake Berryessa in Napa County. We have Brian Hartnell, age 20, and Cecilia Shepard, age 22. Now, they are out at essentially just kind of like a little, they said it was kind of almost like a little island type area, but you could still get around to it. It was almost like a peninsula.
Yeah.
When the water was higher, I guess it would be off on an island.
Well, and this whole thing between Brian and Cecilia, where they were exes who had rekindled and met back on college campus, decided that they wanted to go somewhere and talk. I'm sure it wasn't just talking. They needed a quiet place to do it, so what better place to go to than Lake Berryessa in this state park, where you can have a beautiful little picnic, you can enjoy each other's company in the outdoors. I'm sure California's beautiful in September, right around the lake. It seems like a really picturesque setting for something great to happen.
Well, they see this guy creeping around the woods wearing a kind of a weird clothing and everything. And they're kind of seeing him like stop and kind of look at him. And, they're kind of like looking back at him and everything. He's being just weird. He ends up kind of like, even after they'd seen him, they lost sight of him. He ends up kind of sneaking up on him and coming out from behind the trees. He's still 100 to 75 feet away from them and everything. And ends up pulling a 45 out of his fucking jacket.
But what's he wearing now? What was he wearing?
I'm getting to it.
Did he make this happen himself based on what he was wearing?
Okay. He's wearing just like a black, what I would describe as like the style of like an executioner's hood from the Middle Ages.
Yeah.
Like a black, I don't know if it was a sweatshirt or something like that,
like
but
bib.
On it, huh?
It was like a bib. It was a...
Okay. And then on it was drawn the fucking logo of the Zodiac, the fucking circle with the cross through it. Now, here's the other thing, buddy, that we didn't talk about when we were just kind of like going back and forth on this. Okay. You think that would be something kind of like, I get your point that it seems almost like humorous in its ridiculousness for someone just to come out. Yeah. My thought on it, and just talking about what was also on the bib, is right now around this time, you have had some murders kind of in this area. The Tate LaBianca murders just happened like the month before. And you've probably seen, if you've been paying any attention to the news, you've probably seen that symbol. I don't know if they connected the dots on that. I mean, you're probably panicked as fuck when someone's pulling a gun on you anyway. So this guy talking under his fucking hood claims to be an escaped convict from either fucking Montana or Colorado or something like that. and basically is there to rob them. And so the guy, Brian, was basically like, okay, man. He's like, here's all the money we have on us. Offered to fucking like write him a check, just trying to placate the guy. Here's my car keys. You can go ahead and take the car if you need to try to get to Mexico or do anything like that. Well, he ends up having Cecilia tie up Brian, hands behind his back, and then also his feet. And then he
ties him.
Huh?
Hog ties him, which is a very demeaning way to tie somebody up.
Yes. I don't know if he actually, I know he tied their feet and their hands behind their back and then had them go on their knees. So I don't know if he hog tied them.
Well, it would just be connecting the feet to the hands at that point.
I know, but there's still, when we talk about the movement and what ends up happening, I don't believe he actually hog tied him. So he ends up like securing, he has her tie him first, then secures his, like checks her knot and everything, then ties up Cecilia, then proceeds to pull out a knife. They said it was a 10 to 12 inch blade, and stabs him 6 times in the back, forces them first down onto the ground, onto their stomachs, and then begins stabbing him, stabs her 10 times, and then leaves the scene. Now,
the direct scene.
Now, they're both alive, and apparently they have enough life in them, even after being stabbed this many times by this fucking huge ass knife. She is able to get him free. It had to be by biting his fucking the knots and everything like that, and ends up getting him free while they're there. Boaters are fucking passing by. This is up a little ways from like the main waterway. People aren't really coming that. 2 boats passing by, a third one kind of comes by, and then that one ends up leaving. Well, that one ends up going to get fucking help. Because you come upon that, I don't know what you're going to do if you drive up there. You're probably fucking panicked, like, what the fuck is going on here? He goes to get help. He doesn't tell them he's going to get help, and so they're just like, fuck, no one's here. So he ends up getting free. I'm trying to remember what he's doing, if he's trying to get help or anything like that.
Yep. He starts trying to crawl up to a road. He says the last thing that he sees before he passes out is a motorist pull over and somebody walking towards him. It happens to be the park ranger that had been alerted by the guys in the boat.
Like, and wraps him in a blanket or something like that, which, I mean, you got all these knife wounds. You think you'd try to, like, put pressure on that shit. But apparently, yeah, just wraps him in a blanket. And he ends up surviving. She ends up dying on the way to the hospital.
She goes into a coma on the way to the
right.
hospital and then dies.
That's right.
Later on, when he's interviewed, he says that he, by probably the 5th stab wound, realizes that the only way he's going to be able to try to survive this is to play dead. Mm-hmm. So that's when he lays flat and stops moving. If that was after the 6th, maybe, I don't know. He surmises that the reason why she got stabbed 10 times was because he could hear her fighting. So her will to live was so great.
I don't want to talk about that.
I'm just saying it's sort of the idea of like,
I put myself instantly in that position and everything like that, and so yeah, I don't want to think about that.
I
get your point.
It's such a fight or flight response that she kept doing it, but she still survived enough. This is where I kind of find a multitude of things here. Going back to the hood and the executioner's mask, ridiculous get up. It's like his villain. He wants a villain suit to wear, I feel like. And like you were talking about with the crosshairs.
But he's not expecting them to live. They're not supposed to survive.
So he just did it for him.
Correct. There's not supposed to be anything. It's okay. Well, actually, yeah, that makes sense. I think the other thing, though, too, is I don't think the mask was necessarily, well, maybe at this point, because he's like, oh shit, maybe they do have my description. He's like, I need to cover up. So he knows that he might not be fully successful in killing them because one of them with a gun has already. The other thing, too, is because this completely breaks from his previous MO of couples at night in cars with a gun. It's during the fucking daytime, and now he's using a knife. So and you were kind of talking about was there's something about the Tate LaBianca murders where they were getting so much attention that he felt that he had to make it more sensational, I guess, and more risky that he did it during the day and everything, that he wanted to get that fucking attention back on him.
I will say my theory on it was where they were in this park. there were other people that they'd interviewed in the park saying that they had seen a man walking around kind of surveying the area. I think he knew in order for him to get away because he was so much further from his car, because the first two, his car was literally feet away. So he needs a quieter way to do it. Whereas if you're firing gunshots in a park and everything echoes, there's going to be more people to hear and draw attention to.
He also had an alibi that would explain why he was at that. Okay, sorry, that's getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
Because when we talk about the suspects, there's one that, I don't know how this guy did not get fucking taken in for this, but it fucking ties directly to this fucking day.
Yeah.
This exact same fucking spot.
But I do think that the by knife was by design, so it was almost a little bit quieter, so he did have time to get back to his getaway car.
Yeah.
Because if you're shooting in there and you know that there's other people around in the area, there's going to be more of a rush to where the gunshots came from. But if you're stabbing people, unless they're screaming, you're not going to be able to hear what's going on.
Well, to make sure that the message is not lost in case, everyone does go ahead and die during it, he actually sends his next, what they consider a letter, on the side of their car.
It's on the board.
Oh, there we go. So what he writes is Vallejo 10/20/68, then 7/4/69,
12/20/68.
Oh, sorry, 12/20/68. Then September 27th. What does that say?
69.
69 to 6:30?
69, and then it said 6:30 by knife.
Oh, okay.
So it was the time of the murder and then the weapon used.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
He scrawls that with a felt tip pen on the side of Brian Hartnell's white Carmen Ghia. So he leaves for certain, and the crosshairs were underneath it. So he leaves a for certain note to let them know when they come and investigate the scene that it was the same guy, but the mode of murder was different. Which I don't know if, like you were talking about with the Tate murders, writing by knife, if that was to try to make it sound more fantastical, but obviously they're going to find the people and see that it was knife wounds and be like, oh, shit.
Maybe it's like it wasn't doing the same for anymore, so he needed to try to, like, get that next fucking, take it up a notch, just for his own fucking growth. I don't fucking know.
It really can be, or it could be. We go a little bit later on in the night, 7:40 p.m. There's a call to the Nampa County Sheriff's Department by payphone again. This time it's in downtown Napa, and it was, again, a few blocks away from the sheriff's office. It was 27 miles away from the crime scene. So there's where your difference in time is and why the call was later, because it was further away from the crime scene.
Was it the same kind of call where he was taking credit for it?
So he calls, and he actually sort of pats himself on the back, voice again. I want to report a murder. No, a double murder. They're 2 miles north of park headquarters. They were in a white Volkswagen Carmen Ghia. Hangs up the phone. Or he doesn't hang up the phone this time, because last time he hung up the phone, the automatic callback drew attention to the payphone.
Oh, gotcha.
So he leaves the receiver off the hook. Yeah. So, and then leaves. So we have another call where he's, not only if they didn't get the letter, now they know, again, same guy. Because it's the same MO. The fact that Hartnell survived this is, they said if it was a couple inches to the right, I believe, it would have hit his heart, one of the stab wounds that he sustained. To be stabbed 6 times and to be able to make a full recovery. I listened to an interview with him from his hospital bed, and the amount of grace that he shows this guy that just stabbed the fuck out of him is pretty incredible. He talks about how he's a deeply troubled man and he needs help. If somebody just stabbed me 6 times and I survived it...
Not only that, man, like, he just fucking killed someone that at the very least you fucking did. Yeah, I don't get that.
He showed a remarkable side to him in this interview.
I don't have that in me.
No, not at all.
All right, before we get to the next one, let's take a bathroom break.
Okay.
Well, hey there, all you sexy historians. How you guys doing?
It is time for...
socials.
Where can they find us on Instagram?
If they want to follow us, they can find us at Historically High Pod on Instagram.
That goes the same for Threads as well. You can also find us on Twitter.
Tell them about Twitter.
Historically High. That's Historically HI on Twitter.
And if you want to email any of your comments or suggestions, where can they find us at, Adam?
At Historically High Podcast at gmail.com.
Gmail. All right, and back to the show. All right, we now come to the Presidio Heights murder. And again, this is kind of a big break from his normal MO.
I would say almost a complete break, because everywhere else that this happened, it's happened out in the country. So it's happening kind of in the surrounding areas of San Francisco, whereas this one's like dead in the heart of San Francisco. The most risky place that you could commit a murder. Also along those same lines, there's more than a few shootings probably happening in San Francisco in a day. This is happening, middle of San Francisco, Presidio Heights. The victim's name is Paul Lee Stein. He was 29. He was a cabbie that was paying for, I thought it was medical school, until I read up on it. He was actually studying for his doctorate in English, I believe. So, again, I said this to Chris earlier on in our research. 1969, you're going for your doctorate in English and you're a cabbie to pay for school and to pay for your family? Like, that seems like an odd job that you would do to pay for school. But again, school back then could have been $1,000.
Well, yeah, but at the same time, like, if he's doing this during night and doing it, it's a job that is available for him to do at night when he's not going to school during the day.
It just seems like such an odd profession to do to pay your way through doctor school.
You got to do what you got to do.
Doctorate school.
So he ends up having a white male passenger enter his cab at Washington or Maple.
Washington to go to Maple.
Oh, sorry. Washington to go to Maple. So it was very specific where the cross streets were. And in those days, cabbies would actually have a ledger and they would write down their fares because they're not having all the digital shit in front of them. So he wrote down, where he picked up his fare, where they're going. And then that also helps them calculate essentially how much it's going to cost, the time they picked up. There's a log of this shit. So at 9:55, the passenger ends up shooting Stein in the back of the head and has to then because there's the divider and all that kind of stuff, he then goes into the front seat because of the way that he was positioned in the car and takes a piece of his shirt with blood on it. And this was also done with a 9mm. There were 3 kids that were across the street, like in a house, like up on the third floor of a house. And they, I don't know if they heard the gunshot because they had noticed the cab before. I don't know if they just happened to be looking out the window at the time and they noticed they looked like they were arguing at first. But they weren't able to really provide that much of a description on the guy. Obviously, because what ended up getting called out on the APB.
Yeah. 1969 is a different time, I'd like to say. And I believe that good old-fashioned racism is what really fucked this thing up. Because these 3 teens from across the street that witnessed the incident, they call the police. They witnessed the white male passenger. I don't know if they explained it this way, but after the shooting happens, they see him get out, and as he's getting out, he's wiping down fingerprints on the outside of the vehicle and on the inside of the vehicle with the piece of cloth that he just tore off the guy's shirt. So he's cleaning up the crime scene, and as he leaves, they call the police. They say, we just witnessed a shooting at these cross streets. And again, this is all just based on what we know. There were 2 officers that were traveling to the call that saw a white male, 35 to 45, 5'10", a crew cut walking away from the scene. Now, you'd think in any other situation, holy shit, they just saw this white guy shoot this guy and then get out of a car and start walking away. He's going to walk right by the police and they're going to catch him. There was some sort of a miscommunication where the call went out for a black male suspect. So I don't know if it was like he's wearing a black shirt and they're like, okay, there's a black male wearing a black shirt. And they're like, no, a white male. It's like, okay, a black male wearing a white shirt. And they're like, no, a white male. And the police are like, I can't hear him. Black male. Just look for a black male.
Someone's stealing somebody's mail?
Just a cacophony of issues. And so they get to the scene and they're not finding anybody because until they can get it clear that their suspect was actually a white male that they were looking for, more than likely they drove right past the murderer, the Zodiac Killer, and did not pay him any attention because the information they got was a black male.
Yeah. He also took, I think, his keys and his wallet as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
So a little bit like a robbery look type scenario. I mean, that was kind of what they thought. They had no idea that they were going to go ahead and put it together that this was a Zodiac until October 13th. October 13th, the Chronicle, again, gets a letter from the Zodiac claiming credit. And along with that credit for the murder, he sends part of the bloody T-shirt that he had stolen from Stein's body.
Yeah. One thing, too, I've kind of been curious about is, with the exception of the, Zodiac, like I am Zodiac, when he first identifies himself going to the Examiner, it kind of seems like a lot of the big stuff goes to the Chronicle. I mean, yeah, he does probably spread it out a little bit. But to send essentially like the piece of shirt with that, do you think that we'll talk about him in a second, but there was this guy, Paul Avery?
Yeah.
So Paul Avery was I guess like crime beat writer at the Chronicle and had been writing a lot about the Zodiac. So I wonder if there was something, because he made some not very nice comments regarding his like sexual proclivities and shit like that, possibilities. I wonder if there was almost, even at that point, because we're going to get to something a little bit later, where he was taking that personal, and so it was like, I'm sending it here because I know who's going to get it.
Well, and I'm sure this was a tactic that Avery probably used in order to get the attention from the Zodiac, because they know that the Zodiac's reading his press clippings.
Oh, yeah, 100%. He wanted shit in the front page of the fucking newspaper.
So if he's like, this stupid pussy that keeps running away from these crime scenes, as soon as he starts using derogatory terms, the Zodiac's like, that motherfucker.
And I think Avery said at some point he was trying to like draw him out or make him make a mistake or some shit like that.
Well, and in this letter that came with the part of the T-shirt, it reads, "This is the Zodiac speaking. I am the murderer of the taxi driver over by Washington Street and Maple Street last night. To prove this, here's a blood-stained piece of his shirt. I am the same man who did in the people in the North Bay area. The SF police could have caught me last night if they had searched the park properly instead of holding road races with their motorcycles, seeing who could make the most noise. The car drivers should have just parked their cars and sat quietly waiting for me to come out of cover. School children make nice targets. I think I shall wipe out a school bus some morning. Just shoot out the front tire, then pick off the kiddies as they come bouncing out." So, we reach a new threat level, because now we've gone from couples to just random murders of cabbies in the street. Now he's starting to threaten school children, and this scared the ever-living shit out of everybody in the San Francisco area. They said, I don't even know how this is possible and how it would work. They said that there were planes that were flying low enough to keep eyes on school buses. That has to be a helicopter, right?
No, I mean, they could have planes flying, like if you have a path of school buses, because the whole point was that he was going to shoot out the tire, and then as they came out, he was going to pick them off. Their thought process on that, and again, this is crazy fucking psycho shit to even fucking say this, like, about what he's planning to do. So, in addition to the planes, and I'll get back to that, they had, like, unmarked cars that were following school buses and everything. The whole city was fucking thrown into a panic. It was fucking pandemonium. And I think the reason that they would have the planes is they would be looking, because at that point, I think they even were arming some bus drivers, or I can't remember if it got to that point. If something happened, they were going to have everybody get fucking down on the floor and stay on the bus. If at any point a plane saw a bus with its lights not working that looked like it had been off the road or something like that, they're calling that in. So I think they're just flying a pattern above, not specific buses, but just on the lookout for anything.
It's like a general area.
Yeah, because then if they called it in, the kids are in there, the cops get there, and, at least they're protected inside the bus to as much of a degree as they could be if someone starts trying to fire on it.
To a certain extent, I can definitely see that. It makes a lot of sense. But as far as murders go, you can't really rank them because it's always a loss of life. I'm going to rank a bus full of children much higher than a couple out in the woods.
Man.
And a cabbie who had a family, not trying to diminish his death, but this is, you ratchet this bitch up to 11.
It's a completely different thing.
October 22nd, there's a 2 a.m. call to the Oakland Police Department.
Hold on. The teens that did end up doing the witness testimony about the guy getting out of the cab he's not wearing his fucking little mask at this point. So they were able to actually put together, through talking to all of them, a composite sketch. And it's kind of an infamous sketch. If you just pull up Zodiac Killer, it's usually one of the ones that'll pull up. Weirdly enough, doesn't it kind of look like Dwight Schrute?
In glasses.
Yeah. Well, Dwight Schrute did wear glasses.
But he never wore sunglasses, did he?
Oh, I guess that's true.
And I'm sure, well, because even then, this is a weird thing that we forgot to mention about his Executioner's hood cosplay that he was doing. There was actually a pair of sunglasses that were stitched onto the hood.
I guess he looks more like Dale from King of the Hill.
A little bit, yeah.
Kind of a Dwight Dale mashup.
He looks like he could be a Blues Brother.
Yeah.
But this famous composite sketch that comes up now is something that's used. It'll be used later on to kind of show suspects to get some different understanding. Obviously, they couldn't go show the gentleman that survived the murders at the lake because he was wearing the hood.
Yeah.
But this is just kind of all we have to go on
Well,
what
and
he
at
looked
this
like.
point, too, didn't Michael, they were trying to get a hold of Michael. How did you pronounce his last name?
Majot.
They were trying to get a hold of Michael Majot because he was the one that provided this description of what the guy looked like. So if they could match this up, they couldn't find Michael Majot. He had essentially left town and everything, which I don't fucking blame him. Get the fuck away from that area and don't tell anyone where you're going. I think that's a completely normal thing. It didn't look at all suspicious because he had been fucking shot, so it's not like he has to worry about being a fucking suspect in it. But yeah, getting the fuck out of Dodge and getting away somewhere tropical, warm, and peaceful would be the only place I'm fucking heading after this point.
I would go somewhere with no guns.
That is, yep, yeah. On October 22nd, oh, and also the piece of shirt, of course, they did forensic testing and everything and found that the blood did match, so they knew that it was legitimate. Also, at this point, they're also getting a ton of, fucking false tips, all that kind of crazy stuff. I think my neighbor might be the Zodiac. All this kind of, the crazy shit that you would think of, you think about shit nowadays, about how crazy people get it. People were sending in copycat letters, all this kind of stuff. So sorting out, they definitely had to have something to tie it directly to these activities.
This is going to be a hot take. I believe the people that call in and just to fuck with the police when a murder like this happens are actually more deranged than the actual killers themselves.
I don't know if more. I think there's a level of derangement that's required for that, but
there's a certain part of your brain that has to be really, really wrong to want to try to capitalize on something so sadistic and terrible.
There is 100%, but I don't think those are the same parts of the brain. I think the part of the brain where you murder people has got to be separate from that. I'm sure they're bedfellows. They're next door neighbors.
Same neighborhood.
But they're not crossing that fence. There's a fence big enough there that's not letting them across. There's some rose bushes there.
It's just the saddest thing. Second saddest thing that you can do besides the murder, but it's just sick to be able to take advantage of people like that.
Well, October 22nd at 2 a.m., there was a call to the Oakland Police Department demanding that either Mr. F. Lee, fuckface.
F stands for fuck and fuck Lee Bailey.
Fuck Lee Bailey. F. Lee Bailey, we talked about him during the O.J. Simpson episode. Go back and listen to that one.
F. Lee Bailey has defended some of the worst people.
Oh yeah, that's why he got hired for the fucking OJ.
Yeah, but OJ compared to the rest of them, it's like, this is more of a step down. For the bad shit that OJ did, he's like a JV to some of the murderers that F. Lee Bailey is.
That's why I think this guy's requesting him. And this was again all previous to OJ and everything. So he either requests F. Lee Bailey or this guy named Melvin Belli, I think. Belli. Belli to appear on this show called AM San Francisco, basically like what you would have for your local news in the morning.
This was Danny Tanner's show in Full House.
This wasn't Wake Up San Francisco.
Same thing. Same idea.
I can't even imagine if this happened. Bob Saget trying to interview this guy. So they end up finding Melvin to do this, and they go on the show. It's him and the host, and they're keeping the phone lines open. They're asking people not to call in or anything like that. And someone ends up calling in. And the Zodiac, I'm doing air quotes here, called in multiple times talking with Belly before agreeing to meet him. And the reason he had to call in multiple times is, of course, they're trying to fucking trace the call. They're recording everything. But he obviously had some knowledge to their ability to trace a call. and wasn't taking any chances. So he would just literally hang up the phone, then call back, hang up the phone, call back. And it's not like where it's like, we're at 70%. And he calls back in. And they're like, 80%, make him call again. It was, if you didn't fucking get it all, you didn't really get any of it, I don't think. So you're having to start over each time. So you're not getting enough time to get this.
The number that I heard, and it could be very wrong, so I'm just going to throw it like a dart with my eyes closed. I think they said he called it 55 times. Just over the course of the interview because he was so concerned. They decided to go by the name Sam.
Yeah, he was like, that name is very ominous. He's like, is there something else we can call you? And he's like, Sam.
But along with that, there were parts where he would just go into rants about killing children. I want to just
saying
drill...
it was the fucking headaches.
Yeah, the headaches that were causing him.
Making him do it.
I want to drill down on this children thing because it's going to lay a suspect pretty bare. But he keeps referencing children, and I say all this to say that this whole thing doesn't really matter. Because like Chris said, before the hang-up, he agreed to meet with Belly. They had, I guess, figured out a place to meet. I don't remember if it was the next day or the coming days. Belly shows up. Of course, they're in a public place, so there's a million paparazzi just waiting.
And a ton of cops.
Oh, yeah. So, doesn't show up. Then on November 8th, the Zodiac mails a card and something called the Z340 cipher.
Before we get into that, because you had Zodiac in quotes, were you saying that you don't think that is the Zodiac, or you do think it was the Zodiac? Because usually that would indicate you don't.
So they traced the calls. They were able to get like a partial trace and figure out where it came from. And it actually led to a mental institution where there was a phone that had made the calls, and they actually found the, not prisoner, but one of the people
Patient.
in the mental institution that was watching... Patient, yes. The better word. Much better word than prisoner. He admitted to doing it. He admitted to being Sam.
Okay.
So he was just some dude that was in the day room that had a phone and a TV and was just fucking with them.
Okay, so here's my question on that. Because you would think, with all of the information that the Zodiac provides and wants credit for all this stuff, this was on TV in San Francisco. Do you think he saw that? And I'm thinking in my head, if that was him writing in and being like, that wasn't me that called in. I don't have, I don't suffer headaches. I'm not sick, all that kind of stuff. Or do you think he saw that and he was like, fucking awesome. They're going to be chasing their tails. Because he loved, in his letters, making fun of the cops and fucking making it known how much smarter than them he was. So part of this makes me think the reason he never denied it in a letter is that he was like, these guys are going to be chasing this guy down and trying to find where this is coming from, and it's going to take the heat off me. While still making the name famous.
That's a fairly interesting point that I didn't really think of. Keep that in mind for about the next 5 minutes, because I think it comes back around in a very weird way.
Okay.
So, November 8th, the Zodiac mails a card.
Oh, hold on. Sorry, one more thing. I'm sorry to keep you interrupting.
No, you're good.
October 27th is when the letter to Paul Avery is sent.
Okay.
So Paul Avery, the guy that I was talking about, the criminal beat writer that had been writing about the Zodiac, he actually gets a letter from the Zodiac directly to him. I am going to try to find it real quick.
Yeah. So, while you're finding that, this is such a fucking weird thing. This November 8th letter that he sends is just a pen, or it's like a card, like a greeting card.
Oh, I got it.
Okay.
Sorry. So, it was a fucking Halloween card. And what it said on it is, from your secret, it had a fucking skeleton wearing like a fucking pumpkin, like a fucking diaper, and the skeleton looked like it dancing, and it's holding up like the AOK symbol, like the three fingers and the index finger and the thumb circled, and it says, from your secret pal, I feel it in my bones, you ache to know my name, and so I'll clue you in, but then why spoil the game? And then wrote boo, and put like some cryptic symbols, signed it Z with the Zodiac symbol on it, and then wrote on it, it says, by fire, by knife, by guns, by rope, slaves, and paradise. And the way this is written, I'm going to try to describe it. So if you're looking at a page, it says by and then fire is spelled going down. Then start slaves in larger text going across the middle. Slaves in paradise are done as a cross, sharing the A in slaves, and then the A after the R in paradise. So it's a cross, paradise coming top to bottom, slaves going left to right. Then under that it says by knife, then in the other quadrant by gun, then in the other quadrant by rope.
What's the odd thing about paradise?
Oh, it's spelled with C.
Yeah. It's odd how he starts doing this with paradise. Yeah, that's for a newspaper guy to get that after you're writing these negative stories.
I'm sorry, you got a fucking card.
Yeah.
Like a creepy fucking card. This isn't just a fucking letter. This is a creepy fucking card.
Well,
I'd be getting the fuck out.
I'd definitely stop writing those articles. I know that. That would scare me enough to...
I'd be getting he knows my name. Oh, and what's fucking hilarious about that is around the San Francisco Chronicle office, they all made pins or badges that said not Paul Avery on it to like identify themselves as not Paul Avery. It was fucking hilarious.
It's so mean. It's so mean to him. Just, that would be terrible. Those people are supposed to be your battery mates in the office. You can't be doing that to the guy. So it's November 8th. The dripping pen card gets sent. The dripping pen card was a card just like your Halloween card. And on the front of it, it said, sorry, I haven't written in a while. My pen was wet. Just some goofy shit that doesn't even matter. It says, this is the Zodiac speaking. I, probably thought you would need a good laugh before you hear the bad news. You won't get the news for a while yet, and I can't do a thing with it. P.S. Could you print this new cipher on your front with a U page? I get awfully lonely when I'm ignored. So lonely I could do my thing.
I don't like that.
No, little ominous. So this is what I was talking about when you were saying that did he like what was going on with the AM San Francisco call or not? So this 340 Z340 cipher has 340 characters in it, and in these 340 characters, he had rigged it a completely different way to where they couldn't use the same coding that the married couple did with the cipher to figure it out. You'd think it took them a fairly long time to break it, but they still needed to break it. My friend, it took until, I believe it was 2021 for it to be broken by 3 guys that had used a computer system to put it in order. And they said that this new cipher was so complicated that there were lines in it that were going diagonal through the cipher.
Like
instead
a crossword puzzle.
Up and down or left.
Crossword puzzle, yeah.
So this new
Not
cipher
crossword, word search.
cracked in 2021. Probably the least effective time that you could ever crack this cipher. It says, and I don't mean to not give these guys credit because it took them that long to figure out how to do it, and the fact that they were able to put together the technology to do it is nothing short of incredible. This cipher is believed to be said, I hope you are having lots of fun and trying to catch me. That wasn't me on the TV show, which brings up a point about me. I'm not afraid of the gas chamber because it will send me to my paradise. All the sooner because I now have enough slaves to work for me where everyone else has nothing when they reach paradise. So they will be afraid of death, and I am not afraid because I know that I know that my new life will be an easy one in paradise death. So, to answer your question, I think that he did enjoy the San Francisco thing, or the radio show, or call-in show, whatever you want to call it, because he didn't mention it in the card that he sent, but he sent it in the cipher that he made extremely difficult to crack.
Yeah.
So I think that he hid it in the cipher because he was happy about it, but he also wanted them to know that that wasn't him.
Yeah, that's true.
He didn't like something in that call, but he liked that the call happened. Like, he liked the idea of it, but he didn't like how it all went.
And just kind of correct myself on the fly. So the letter to Paul Avery didn't take place until August 27th of the next year. So we're still in 69 right now. The letter for Paul Avery didn't get sent until, the 70s.
Okay.
70.
So we got a little bit longer after that. The very next day, a 7-page letter shows up, and it claims that he was stopped by 2 officers, and then he hid in the park until the search stopped.
During the cab shooting.
Yeah, during the cabbie shooting. So 7-page letter. There was probably a lot of rambling and some other things in it, but he said he hid in the park. Whether he did or not, there's no way of knowing. One of the officers that I guess thought that he was referencing him came out that exact same day. It was like, we didn't stop anybody on the street or question anybody, like, to cover his ass. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. His panic makes me think that there's a chance that they might have stopped somebody that was a Zodiac killer, but that bad intel that they had may have led them away from him. So the cops don't want to look like they were idiots and talk to the guy and then let him go. So he comes out and he's like, no, we didn't talk to anybody that day. He was never referenced as one of the officers, but he just came out and wanted to say it. So December 20th of that year, Belly, the guy that was on the AM radio San Francisco or the AM TV San Francisco, is mailed a letter and the other part of the shirt from the cabbie shooting. So, again, we have the same guy because he has the other part of the bloody shirt that he had ripped off. In the letter, he asked for help. He is concerned about the demons, some other very weird cryptic shit, but he wants some help from this lawyer to try to get out of what he's done. So the cipher said that he wasn't scared of the gas chamber, but he's asking Belly for help to try to figure out what to do. These don't have return addresses, so Belly can't really do anything about it because he does no way of getting in contact with him. That's sort of the break from this timeline. We'll talk about some other possible victims that happened because this sort of goes to show that for as much as they knew about the Zodiac Killer, there were so many other things that happened. And playing into Chris's point, too, about the letters that were coming in after a certain point, I do believe that this Belly letter was him because who else would have a bloody shirt that matched up? But there were other letters that continued on, and some of them, we'll talk about it. But the first possible victim, we're going to throw it all the way back to 1966. A woman named Sherry Jo Bates that was murdered October 30th, 1966 at Riverside City College.
That would have been roughly 2 years before the first actual confirmed Zodiac Killer.
Correct, yeah. She was found beaten and stabbed to death by the library in between two abandoned houses by campus. And, I mean, you can't really tie it together until we get to November 29th of that same year. There were letters that were sent to the Riverside Press and the Riverside Police saying that Sherry Jo had to die. And letters that felt very similar to the Zodiac letters, except for there was a typewriter that was used to send these. April 30th of 1967, there's 3 more letters sent out, both to the Riverside Police and the press, but also to Bates' father. And the reason why they think these are connected is because one of the first letters had a Z scribbled on the bottom of it that could have been Zodiac. Interesting.
Trying it out?
Yeah, it could have been trying it out. Could have been just a scribble on the bottom of a page. Nobody really knows. The 3 letters, including Bates' father, that were sent were very similar to the first one, kind of taking credit for what had happened, except for Bates' father didn't have the Z on it. I believe one of the other ones didn't have a Z on the bottom of these. But his MO doesn't really seem to fit for me on this one because she was stabbed to death and the others were shootings and then into stabbings.
Yeah.
It was also just a solitary female. They'd found some other things on the campus. There was a scared to die scared scrawled under. It was like a library table on campus. So there were some other things that they maybe thought could be connected to the whole idea of it.
Another one is Kathleen Johns. So Kathleen Johns, this was on March 22nd, 1970. She was driving from San Bernardino to, is it Petaluma?
Petaluma, yeah.
To visit her mother. So she's 7 months pregnant, and she also has her 10-month-old daughter at this time.
I had to do the math on that one.
To see when she would have...
3 months after giving birth, she's pregnant again. That's a fucking rough setup, man. You don't even have your guts back together, right?
Well, she's heading on the highway, and the car behind her starts honking its horn and flashing its headlights. Well, she pulls off, because I don't know if she thought it might have been a cop or something like that. She pulls off the road and stops, and this man in the car parks behind her, comes up to her car, and basically tells her that her right rear wheel, so the passenger rear, that she can't see or anything, even if she sticks her out the window, looks like it's wobbling and then it's loose. He's like, I gotta kit in the car. I can go ahead and tighten up the lug nuts for you if you want. She's like, oh, okay, yeah, go ahead. Well, after doing that, he drives off, and when she gets back onto the freeway...
He loosened the nuts.
Yes.
So instead of tightening them like he said, he loosened the perfectly fine nuts.
Yes.
That's
what I'm getting to, is the wheel almost immediately falls off the car. Well, lo and behold, guess who ends up showing back up? Somehow, like, behind and pulling back up is the same guy, despite having gone ahead of her. I'm not blaming her for this or anything like that, but that's definitely fucking crazy that you're just like, well, you drove ahead of me. Why are you still here? And he's like, well, I guess it was more damage than I thought, and those things must be stripped or something. I'll go ahead and drive you to the gas station for help. Well, she gets with her daughter into the car. Well, during the ride, they end up passing a few different gas stations, and she's not stopping. For about 90 minutes, he just drove back and forth around the back roads. And when she was asking him, she's like, why aren't you stopping? He would just change the subject. He finally has to stop at an intersection, and she jumps out with her daughter and runs into a field and hides. And he kind of like searches for her. She's got a fucking 10-month-old that's like, she's trying not to make noise or anything like that.
He tells her on the car ride that he's going to kill her and then throw her child out the moving car. So panic's high when she jumps out.
Yeah.
Like, that's a very, very tense situation. Her running into a field feels brilliant, like you're talking about. I don't know how you keep a 10-month-old quiet in that whole episode of events.
I don't know, man.
But
it's fucking crazy.
Luck has to be on your side. He jumps out and starts searching the field, looking all over. The only reason that he's scared off is because it must have been dark at this point, because there was a truck that stopped and flashed its high beams into the field to see what was going on with the car that was pulled over at the intersection, and then the doors open, some guy looking through there. The abductor sees that, turns around, jumps back in the car, and takes off. Johns ends up escaping and gets taken to the police station where she tells the story. These things all sound like they could be possible victims, and part of the reason that is because there's subsequent letters that go to the police later on that are just kind of like, hey, just checking in. I'm going to write some pretty weird shit on here, but there's I don't know if we talk about it later on. The letter referencing Kathleen Johns comes out after Kathleen Johns' story hits the news. Mm-hmm. And the reference that he puts in was, he says, I took a wild trip with that lady in the car. So he's making vague references to it, which he's acknowledging that happens. The reason why I don't think he's connected, and he makes a reference to Sherry Jo Bates in one of his other letters. The reason I don't think it happened was because every other letter that he wrote had very detailed statements that really, like, only him and the police would know.
Whereas you're saying that the letter, he didn't write the letter?
No, I think that he did, but I think that he was trying to take credit because he's, I believe, for all intents and purposes, stopped killing at this point. I don't know if it was because things were getting too hot or what. But he needs to keep up that public eye of scaring people. So he's writing in, taking credit for other unsolved crimes to try to keep himself in the mind's eye of the public. Because, again, we're in the hippie mecca in San Francisco during the 70s now. At this point in time, there's a lot of other shit going on, and you can only be under the hold of a psychopath for so long before you're just like, fuck it, I have to live my life still.
Yeah.
Like, we have to continue on with life. This guy can't just grip us in fear. So I think these little comments that he's making about these other murders were to try to keep the mind's eye on him.
Try to keep that 15 minutes of fame going.
Exactly, yeah. I think he was trying to take credit for other shit that was going on, which, again, I could be completely wrong, but his MO doesn't make any sense because if he had abducted Johns, everybody else he just shot and killed immediately or stabbed and killed. Why would you drive around for hours with this woman? When she pulls over the second time, why don't you just walk up, pop her daughter, get back in your car, and leave?
I have mixed feelings regarding that letter. Just kind of looking at it from a perspective of, because everything else had come from him before really the news got out, like at least the details. All the details in this letter where I think, you were able to grasp them and pull them out of the article and what was being reported and her interview and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not sure if, especially considering that it was a failure, I don't know if this guy is the kind of guy that would like write in and be like, yeah, I'm losing my touch. Like I failed. So I think it can go either way on that one.
I didn't want to kill this one. I just wanted to scare her. Like it doesn't. There's. He almost frames it as if he did it intentionally instead of if he did it failed, or if he didn't do it, he didn't have enough information.
Well, he decides to go a little bit bigger. So 420 of 1970.
Crazy how we get an April 20th in this episode. We always get a 420 in every episode we do. It feels like back in these dates.
He sends a 13-letter cipher. Doesn't it start out with "My name is Zodiac"?
It's "My name is," and then it's blank.
Oh, that's right, because he's trying to have them. The whole point of the cipher is to actually discover his real name, and in that he also includes a diagram of how to build a bomb
To blow up a bus.
Yeah.
So the tricky thing about this, and again, this last cipher that he sent, the Z340, wasn't figured out until about 3 years ago. So the Z340 is still completely flabbergasting everybody. The issue is, as these ciphers get smaller, there's less of a sample size to pull letters from.
Yeah.
In a 13-letter cipher, I'm going to get this wrong, almost undoubtedly. There's 28 letters in the alphabet?
Sure.
Okay. There's no way of knowing if there is 28 or not, and I'm not going to try to figure it out if there's no way.
I'm over here counting on my fingers.
But a 13-letter cipher doesn't give you enough of a sample size for an entire alphabet. So there's really no way to try to break the cipher. And like you were talking about with the like symbols next to each other.
26.
26? Okay. Yeah, I'll take 26.
Literally counted on my
actually,
fingers.
I'm impressed that I was that close. But a 13-letter cipher, you don't have a way to really start dissecting it and figure it out. So to
And
this
what do
day,
you do? You just start putting together 13-letter names, or is there a space in there? And what are you trying to fucking figure out?
and there's some weird shit that I don't think really pulls in with the suspects and about the 13 letters, because it's just sort of, there's a lot of reaches to get to where you need to be with that theory. But again, it also includes this diagram of a bomb to blow up a bus. What was his last threat about a bus?
Yeah, shooting the kids off of it.
Mm-hmm. So you're starting to bring more
Quit
attention.
taking me goddamn back to the bus.
April 28th. This is the most interesting letter I believe a serial killer could ever send. And I got to read this one because it's truly amazing, and just the weirdness that this brings. What is the date? April 28th.
This is like Zodiac running for fucking the school. Fucking, what do they call it? ASB?
Yeah.
The all student body or whatever.
So it's written on a card. It says, the front of the card is a woman who's sitting on what looks like a dragon and a man who's sitting on a donkey. And the front of the card says, sorry to hear your ass is a dragon. Is that just like your dragon ass, like you're tired?
Yeah.
Fun play on words?
Yeah.
That's the dumbest shit I've ever seen on a card. I can't believe they wrote cards like that. On the inside of the card, it says...
I wonder if he made it. Because if you think of the one that he sent to Paul Avery, I don't know if you could really get a Halloween card that was specific and saying, I'm not going to tell you my name because it'll ruin the game.
That's true.
Like, what kind of fucking card?
Okay.
Like, what occasion is that? You're over the Hallmark aisle and you're like, letters for aspiring murderers or letters for serial killers. Do you guys have that section?
So the inside of the card says, if you don't want me to have this blast, you must do two things. Tell everyone about the bus bomb with all the details. And two, this is very important too, so we got to listen in tight here. I would like to see some nice Zodiac buttons, 1T, wandering about town. Everyone else has these buttons like the peace, black power, Melvin eats blubber, whatever the fuck that means, etc. Well, it would cheer me up considerably if I saw a lot of people wearing my button, 1T again. Please no nasty ones like Melvin's. Thank you.
What was he wanting? Was he wanting one that said Zodiac, Z, have the logo
The
on it?
crosshairs.
Like, he wasn't even like specific in this. Like, what kind of fucking buttons do you want from this guy?
Here's my plan. You guys do with it what you want.
Yeah.
I don't want them to be nasty though. No Zodiac eats dick or anything like that. I want this to be a very nice button. That's a crazy thought that I could go a million different directions with.
The buttons don't happen
No, they don't happen.
for
but
obvious fucking reasons.
But what what do you think his thought process behind wanting that is? He wants to know that people know about him?
He wants his name still. He still wants to be talked about. What's going to be the conversation with, fuck, man, you know what? As weird as this is going to even comparison, it's the fucking mask thing or everything like that. Like, not taking whatever. But what I'm saying is it was always a talking point. And that's what I mean it in the sense of you would see someone come in, they would be wearing that button. That would be your conversation. Like, why the fuck are you wearing that button? Whether your reasoning had those buttons somehow got distributed or people started wearing them, it's like, well, if I wear the button and do what he says, he's not going to murder me if he ends up finding me. But at the same time, you're like, but you're still keeping your name essentially in this, essentially on people's tongues.
I will say, if this was in the height of when the murders were happening, like the one that happened in San Francisco, if I saw one of those buttons and I thought for a half a second if this guy wasn't going to shoot me out on the street if I was wearing it, I'd consider putting the button on.
Oh, yeah.
The other thing that he's doing is this weird scorecard on the bottom of these last two. The first, April 20th, the 420 letter at the bottom had his crosshair symbol, equals 10, SFPD equals 0. So is this his victim scorecard? Is he claiming now that he's gone from 5 victims that we know about to 10 victims and the SFPD hasn't been able to catch him, so they're still got a goose egg on the board?
I think it's his score of them not being able to catch him for certain things.
It is?
Whether it be letters, whether it be all this kind of stuff. It could be, at this point, April 28th, is this possibly months?
Yeah, well, from April 20th to April 28th, it jumps from him 10, police department 0 to him 12, police department 0. So in a matter of 8 days, it's jumped 2 somehow?
Yeah, I think it's essentially just maybe wins. Like things that he thinks he's getting over on them. I don't know if it's necessarily murder. Because again, they're having murders that are happening at this time, shootings, things like that in the city. But I don't know if he's necessarily saying like, oh, I just killed 2 more.
True, yeah. We wait all the way until June 26th for another follow-up letter. Again, this just shows how fucking crazy this dude is. This is the Zodiac speaking. I love how he starts it off everything like that. Like we don't already know. Like he's...
Motherfucker, you're not even speaking. You're writing a letter. This is the Zodiac writing.
Like there's 15 other serial killers that are writing the police letters.
Yeah.
Like if one of these shows up, I think we're going to know who it is.
What's up, guys? It's Z.
I have become very upset with the people of San Fran Bay Area. They have not, underlined, complied with my wishes for them to wear some nice buttons. I promise, with a C again, just like Paradise, to punish them if they did not comply by annihilating a full bus, 2 S's. But now school is out for the summer, so I punished them in another way. I shot a man sitting in a parked car with a .38. Crosshairs 12, SFPD 0. So this must have been the 12. So June 26th was the 12. The map was coupled to it, and this map was a map of something called Mount Diablo. There was a weird kind of setup.
Mount Devil?
Yeah, California, man. I don't know. Maybe it...
Yeah, Diablo is devil.
Yeah, I can't really say a mountain gets you closer to the devil, so that doesn't really work. But this
It's
map...
a bitch to hike up.
This map gets coupled with a code where this bomb is supposed to be set. Since you can't do buses, you got to do something else. So he shoots the guy, he plants this bomb, and it says you have until next fall to dig up the bomb, and then you get another cipher. I'm not going to count.
Did they find a victim?
No. I'm sure there was something in the news about a shooting that happened like that, but again... The only thing that he gives is, I shot a man sitting in a parked car with a .38. There was no descriptors or anything like he gave about the checkered pants.
About any of the other ones to prove it was him. Yeah.
So this map goes unsolved. Just doesn't happen. But again, he goes back to the buttons, and he's angry that the people won't wear some nice crosshair buttons. Just fucking the weirdest thing in the world.
Buttons.
To hope to reach for it. This is where we get, and I believe it's his final letter. It's not the final letter that they get, but his final letter comes January 29th, 1974 to the Chronicle. And his Chronicle letter is just super duper odd because it starts out...
It's like talking to a friend.
Yeah.
That you have a regular correspondence with.
And maybe he was a loner, so maybe this was his way of communicating with anybody. I would assume he'd have to be a loner with as weird as his personality seems to be. But it says, I saw and think The Exorcist was the best satirical comedy with an eye that I have ever seen.
I give it 2 thumbs up.
Yeah. Signed, yours truly, EY, nothing, just blank. He plunged himself into a billowy wave, and an echo arose from the suicide's grave. Titwillow, Titwillow, Titwillow. It's a passage from something called The Mikado. I think it was like a play or something. I don't know. Then it says, P.S. If I don't see this note in your paper, I will do something nasty, which you know I'm capable of doing. Nasty. Me, 37, SFPD, Sero. Pretty shocking. Pretty scary. After this, there is another letter that comes in all the way April 24th, 1978. They believe that this was...
4 years later, over 4 years later.
Yeah. They believe that this was a hoax letter that had been written by one of the homicide detectives named David Tochi, and they believe that he did it because he started in on the case after the Cabby murder, and he felt like things were getting cold and they weren't getting funding and they weren't trying to continue to look for it, so they think that he wrote this letter in order to try to bolster some more support for it. Which, again, a 4-year absence is pretty heavy. Along with the June 26, 1971 to 1974, these letters are coming so much more infrequently that you have to drum up support somehow.
I don't think it was ever proved that it was him that, or was it him that actually wrote it?
That's just what they believe.
I'm not saying that if he did, that's fucking dumb as shit. But I'm trying to put my mind into like someone that is around murder all the time and is responsible like for trying to get families some peace of mind and everything like that. And with how long this went on and everything, you just got to wonder if it gets to the point where you get so obsessed about it that you feel like this is your fucking Captain Ahab and this is your white whale. Like you got to do this for the people that aren't alive, or you're just obsessed. So I could kind of see reasoning if he did write that, if he felt that was the only way that he could go about it. I don't condone it, but I could see where a friend of mine would be.
In true poor podcasting fashion, I forgot to read the letter.
Oh, okay.
It says, Dear Editor, this is the Zodiac speaking. I am back with you. Tell Herb Cain I am here. I have always been here. That city pig Toshi is good, but I am smarter. There's BU crossed out and then smarter. And better. He will get tired, then leave me alone. I'm waiting for a good movie about me. Who will play me? I'm now in control of all things. Yours truly, blank. Crosshairs equals guess. SFPD still equals 0. So, again, just a weird... the fact that it's referencing these detectives, I think, may have given him away, because I don't know if he would know about all of the detectives.
I think with as much stuff as in the news, and with the detectives being lead on that there would probably be something, because detectives, I think, at some point maybe do have to talk to the press.
Oh, yeah, if they're giving press conferences.
The one most mentioned, or that talked to the press the most, he would have to assume that he was probably the lead detective on the case.
Okay, yeah, I can go with that. So now, we got to figure out who did this, and...
We're going to solve it?
I think we're going to solve it. We're going to start with a gentleman named Lawrence Kane, a guy with a long rap sheet. He actually stalked Darlene Ferrin. He would go into a restaurant. When he was interviewed, he said that he would give her rides home that she would ask for often. When Darlene's friends and family were interviewed, she said, and her husband, she said, or she had told them that he had harassed her a lot. He had threatened her multiple times. I don't know who to believe in that situation, because if you're asking for a ride home, you're probably not too concerned about the threatening nature. This guy matches a description to a T. If you see a picture of him and you see the drawing, you're like, holy shit, they just drew this picture of this guy sitting there. Like, he matches up completely. And Kathleen Johns had identified him as his abductor. As her abductor. So, if she identifies him as the abductor, and we believe that since the Zodiac took credit for it, he must be the Zodiac. It's a bit of a stretch for me. I also think that there is a world where somebody in Darlene's orbit may have committed the murders. It's odd that he didn't start with her, but maybe he got jealous and followed her. And that was just the second murder. Like, he did a test run, and then he decided to stalk Darlene. He sees some shit that he doesn't like with her going and picking the dude up.
Buddy, even as much as you watch these serial killer things, I don't think you have the mind for this.
Why?
The mind of a serial killer. Because, like, you're sitting here and be like, I think this is why he did it. This is, like, there's so many different reasons. Like, it's just like you said. It could have been, like, he was so fixated on Darlene. He's like, if I'm going to do it, I want to do it right. And I can't mess it up, so I should probably do it first, have a trial run to make sure that I can do it properly. And then once I figure out if I can do it, then I'll get onto the main event.
But then how do you explain the rest of them afterwards?
Yeah, you got a taste for it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's an odd kind of thought process.
It's when you accidentally scroll across porn that you maybe didn't think you were interested in, and all of a sudden that little thumbnail plays, and you are like, I did not know that I was attracted to this.
One of his main drawbacks was he was just too short. He didn't quite fit that.
I'm sure that wasn't the only way to get rid of him. He probably had alibis for other events that had happened that were attributed to the Zodiac.
Yeah. Our second guy, Rick Marshall. I think that
Rick Marshall?
Yeah, I think this could be Dr. Rick Marshall because as soon as I heard him. Yeah.
Rick Marshall.
He might have had Chaka do this.
Rick Marshall.
And he could have hidden all the weapons in the land of the lost.
If we need, we will kill and eat Chaka. I'm going to roast him on a fire. Little roast Chaka served with a nice polenta.
In full disclosure, one of the reasons that I put Rick Marshall in here was just so we could make the jokes about Rick Marshall and Land of the Lost. And the fact that I didn't have to tell you proves that we're just same wavelength. As soon as I heard Rick Marshall, I knew. I was like, okay, listen to this guy. This guy, there could be some shit. And truly there could be. Because again, in true historically high fashion, we fucked up and forgot to mention that at the lake murders, they found footprints. Now,
that's right.
Footprints came from a specific boot that was called a wing walker boot that was distributed amongst the military.
Not just the military, because it was specific, because they were made for, like they're called, wing walkers, walking and getting grip on the wings of airplanes. Now, you would think about that and you'd be like, well, that should primarily be the Air Force or Navy. And so they thought they could somehow kind of narrow down who it was, because they were thinking they were only distributed, like, essentially through the Navy, or you could buy them through there. Well, turns out that is not to be the case, because you can get wing walkers sold at any Army Navy surplus store nationwide.
It sucks.
There's like 1 million pairs of wing walkers out there. Fuck!
That really sucks. Learning that little tidbit, it made me realize just how much extra shit we probably make for the military that just ends up in surplus stores because we don't use it. And it's shocking that we actually have military surplus stores because we overmake so much shit.
Not just one. Not just an online military surplus store. Every town has a fucking military. I grew up in a town of 8,000 people. We had a military surplus store. I'm not even shitting you. We didn't have a McDonald's, but we had a military surplus store. I'm not fucking kidding.
That's awesome. So Dr. Rick Marshall served in the Navy.
Not a real doctor.
Not a real doctor, no. He served in the Navy at 18. There's a little connection. Could have got him some wing walker boots at the age of 18. He lived in the Bay Area during the 60s and beyond. He actually lived in an apartment that was in the basement. And the reason that that's sort of interesting was in one of his letters before, he said that he had made the bomb already that he was going to plant on the school bus, and it was in his basement.
And there aren't that many basements, apparently, in California.
Well, in
San Francisco.
Sea level.
Yeah.
Sea level's right there, so you can't really dig down far enough to put a basement in there. So the fact that he lived in a basement's a little bit surprising. Again, this is the 60s, so this feels fucking real foreign today, but it's not. I guess he had some ham radio buddies that he had made some very suspicious comments over the airwaves.
19er.
Yeah, what is ham? Isn't it just shortwave radio? What does ham stand for?
It's a CB radio.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like one of those guys who had like a setup in his house and 30-foot antenna on his... Oh.
But those are CBs. It all operates the same.
Ooh, okay. So a CB almost makes more sense because it's like a little handheld deal.
Yeah.
But he made some very disturbing, suspicious...
It's got the handheld thing attached to the cord and attached to the big thing.
Yeah, that's right. These comments that he made about the Zodiac murders led some of his friends to believe that he might have had a hand in some of these things.
This guy's fucking weird.
Well, nowadays, if you're on a ham radio, it's like, that guy's
fucking weird.
Different.
Yeah.
It gets a little odder. In 2008, there was a woman that was working at Marshall's care facility who had documented comments and then gotten in touch with reporters saying that she believed that he was ready to confess to the Zodiac murders. And he was in the care facility because he had Parkinson's. I'm not 100% sure what Parkinson's does to your mind, but
It's a deteriorating disease and everything.
isn't it muscular, though, more than mental?
I think it is, but I think a lot of those things can also, because it's a degenerative disease, I think maybe in its later stages or without proper care and everything, that it could definitely lead to probably mental degeneration. Not a doctor.
No,
I'm like Rick Marshall. Not
Yeah.
a doctor. I just think, that might be the case.
I'm trying to figure out if this was just like him being obsessed with the Zodiac murders and then trying to say some shit that gets misconstrued by his caretaker. But either way,
He had a
the
hot
fact
nurse, and he was like, "What could make me seem dangerous to this lady before I die?"
I want her to quit getting in here and stealing my shit,
Yeah.
so I'm going to try to scare her away. Either way, it was enough to where she thought that he would be ready to confess to the Zodiac murders, so probably something pretty serious. And again, this is 2008, so this was a really long time off. 2017, so that's sort of the ending of Rick Marshall. There's smoke, but there's not really fire. There's some different things.
There were a ton of suspects.
Yeah. This guy should have been suspect number one. He should have been arrested.
I think he was suspect number one for
Was
a
he?
while. Yeah.
I don't understand how, just like Chris said at the beginning, this guy should have been arrested very, very quickly after he was found out. His name's Arthur Lee Allen. Leigh is his middle name. Sometimes he went by Lee, Lee. The only reason that I bring that up is because of the 13-letter cipher, the My Name Is. So if you're trying to fit it in, ARTHUR is what?
6.
6. LEE would be 3 if you went LEE for Allen, and then 5 letters for Allen.
Yeah.
So,
9, and then actually,
well, it's close.
okay.
And the reason that I say that it's close is because it's
He went by Lee to some people. I don't know.
Yeah, if it's 6, 3, that's 9.
I think as far as that letter, it's all the other stuff that is the daunting piece of evidence. Just because that doesn't match up doesn't, yeah.
Well, in total, it's 14 letters if you go LEE. But he
It
had
was
a way
13-letter cipher, though, so it would only been 13 letters.
he had a way of dropping letters or changing letters in most of his shit. So was this another one where it was just LE? Is there a chance that that could be the 13 letters?
Not sure.
It's very suspicious. I don't know if there's anything there because, again, you have to make some leaps to make it work. But he was tied to a number of the crime scenes. The 2007 film that all the hot men are in.
That Jake Gyllenhaal is so hot.
Yeah. It's basically about Arthur Lee Allen. Like, it's shot in a way where Arthur Lee Allen's sort of the main suspect. Again, he's tied to a number of crime scenes. He lived near Darlene Ferrin, so he knew Darlene Ferrin. He also lived near her. There was some scuttlebutt about he may have been over at one of the painting parties. He was said this Lee that came over, and again, he went by Lee sometimes. The man referenced the painting parties was Lee. One of her sisters said that he would always bring her gifts from travels down to Mexico, so there was a little bit of an attraction there, obviously. He was a frequent visitor to Lake Berryessa.
Not just a frequent visitor, but on September 27th, when the actual murder at that happened, he was actually at Lake
Berryessa.
Sure. Yeah, September 27th, he was actually at Lake Berryessa saying he was scuba diving. He was in the vicinity. And I think that comes back to play of saying, because he wasn't just walking around with his fucking mask on and everything like that, couldn't do that. So at some point with him walking around, he had to figure that he was gonna be identified there, or at least people would be able to match a description.
Yes.
And he needed to have some type of alibi.
He also admitted that he had knives with blood on them. He said that the knives that had the blood on them came from a chicken. I guess when he came home from Lake Berryessa, there were reports that he had blood on him.
Yeah, like his neighbor had reported seeing blood or like seeing blood on knives or something like that.
So in the most logical sense, when he admits to it, he says that he butchered a chicken for somebody that was grilling down at Lake Berryessa. Yeah. Just a normal thing that you take a live chicken to the park and then slaughter it there.
Yeah.
There's no other way that you would describe it. What was his favorite piece of jewelry?
He wore a very fancy watch, which bared a really strange name. It was actually a Zodiac brand watch, and the symbol for the Zodiac watch was the circle with the cross through it. He said he got it as a gift from his mother or something.
Yeah. What, when you're trying to come up with your killer moniker and you're looking around to try to figure it out, you could probably look down at a watch and be like, yeah, I really like this watch. It's a Zodiac.
What are the fucking chances, though? I don't know if it was that popular of a watch or anything, but
No.
like the simple fact that you are wearing that, you've had that for a while as a gift from your mother, which means that...
Or you're lying about it and you got it yourself.
No, not only that, what I'm trying to say is if you've had it for an extended period of time, it would have been an inspiration for an extended period of time, which comes into play on the next bit is that he told a friend he was writing a novel called Zodiac about a murderer who kills couples at random.
That's pretty on the nose.
It appears so.
Pretty on the nose. This friend, we're forgetting his name, Chris brought up an interesting theory prior to the interview that this guy could be trying to frame Arthur Lee Allen with as much bad shit as he said. But there's I believe the show or the documentary on YouTube is, I think it's called My Name Is, or The Zodiac Killer, or something like that. But he does this very long interview just pointing out all these little weird things as far as the Zodiac watch. He talks about this book. There's just so many things, I guess, that they just had conversations about that seemed really, really weird. He had a dishonorable dishonorable discharge from the Navy. So there again, the wing walker boots, probably not because they came from a surplus store or could have come from a surplus store.
They could have, but
Yeah.
they could have been a pair of boots that someone had had for a while that they got from the Navy. It doesn't mean that they didn't come from there.
And maybe the Navy boots matched the hood. Maybe he was going for a vibe. Could have been.
A SEAL thing?
Yeah, we don't know. Also, he was fired from teaching in 1968 for potential sexual misconduct with students. The only reason that I pointed that out is because this happened a year before. Interesting theory you pitched me earlier in preparation. 1968, he may have had some sexual desires that could be tied into needing to fulfill an urge. Much like we talked about with the first cipher and him comparing murder to getting your rocks off with a girl. Could the sexual misconduct have scared him away from that? Maybe he didn't have access to children, so he started trying to fulfill his fantasies by committing murders that would then start that same year.
Just pivoted the fucked upness of his brain to another endeavor.
Yeah. It all seems very convenient. He was interviewed in 1971 by police. And again, coincidentally, in 1971 is when we see the first gap in letter writing that happens, because we don't get another letter until 1974. 1972, there's a search warrant for his house, and when they go
His
inside...
trailer, not his house.
Excuse me, his trailer. His house, but a trailer.
No, the reason I brought that up is because he had a house, and he had a trailer. They only got the search warrant for his trailer. They weren't able to get enough to search. And I don't know. I think it was because it might have been in a different county. Also, what happened during this whole thing is because you actually have these murders happening in different places. You have different local law enforcement that are trying to communicate, but also keeping information, trying to be the ones that crack the case and everything. So you essentially had different counties where this stuff was happening. Well, his trailer house or his trailer was in one area that they were able to get a search warrant for.
Oh, okay.
And so when they went there, they uncover, was it bomb diagrams?
Bomb diagrams. They also recovered a very considerable amount of newspaper clippings about the Zodiac killings. So he was keeping record of everybody that was writing different things, including probably, he had a full section of Avery, I would assume.
Yet still not enough to get a search warrant in any of the other places for his real home. Or that made him, even if they would have got that, by the time they get this one and are working on a search warrant, he now knows he's going back to his other house and getting rid of any incriminating evidence. Yeah. Well, in 1974, after he hasn't killed for a little while, I'm just going to speak as if it was this guy because I believe it was this guy.
Yeah.
In 1974, because he can't kill anymore, he gets arrested for child molestation. He just goes back to his tried and true method of touching kids. And weirdly enough, after that happened, no letters sent by the Zodiac. So
Pretty
what had been
weird.
received in 74 before this happened, he then gets arrested. No more letters happening.
I also think he gets out in 77. So just a little stand alone there. Molesting a child gets you 3 years in jail. That seems a bit light, especially taking in the prior misconduct that he had that got him fired from the school that he had worked at before.
Mm-hmm.
But this sort of goes along the lines of we see the stopping of the letters in 70 or after 71 until 74. There's a few letters written in 74. Then there's arrest for this child molestation. Did the first interview that he had by police in 71 scare him enough to realize that he should probably quit writing letters? And then once the heat got off of him by 74, he's like, I'll probably go back to writing these. Then once he starts writing them again, he ends up getting popped for banging a kid. He's replaced the murder that he hasn't done in a very, very long time back with the child molestation that may have launched him into the murders.
Yeah.
I know I said that very quickly. I hope that it made as much sense to everybody else as it does to me. There were some other things that happened kind of later on with the case. This one I want to throw some credit behind, but just knowing how the mind works, I just don't really know if it was. 1992, Majot positively identifies Alan as the Zodiac Killer, the one that attacked him and his special lady. The reason why I don't put a whole lot into this is we're talking from 1969 to 1992. You're being brought back in to look at a lineup, and you positively identify a guy who, again, you've had so many years, and you're doing this one thing to try to identify a killer in 1992. So they're coming to you because they think that they have somebody.
Yeah.
Your mind could probably fool you into picking out a guy pretty easily if you really want the case to end, right?
On the opposite side of that, if someone had such an impact on your life negatively, I'm guessing you've had to be in a lot of therapy, and I'm guessing you see this person in your nightmares on a regular basis. I don't think you forget what this person looks like. And how many different lineups had this guy identified? Why didn't he just feel like he could have tried to get someone at those? The fact that he, even in 92, identified him, when lineups do occur, I would like to think that there's nothing that occurs up to that point of showing him pictures or anything like that to try to make him biased toward one person or another, because it's all at random except for the suspect. But the fact that he identified this guy says to me that it probably was most likely this guy, regardless of the time that had passed, just because of how much that was probably just seared into your fucking brain, knowing that was almost one of the last things you saw.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think that there's credence to what you're saying. I could go 50-50 between that and him just wanting to finally
at the same time, if it was
it.
just that, then maybe on the fence a little bit, but because of everything else, so 50-50 on that aspect of it. But overall, definitely the guy that did it.
Well, and then in 2002...
and he's not alive, so we can't get in trouble. Ha ha ha!
Actually, he was still alive at this point. Because they were writing up the arrest warrant to go get him, and then like 2 weeks before they had that arrest warrant, he has a heart attack and dies in his house.
Yeah.
Very odd timing for him to have a heart attack. Maybe he was worked up in a panic because he could have just been told
that he forced himself to have a heart attack.
Yeah. Uh-huh. There's always a chance of this stuff. So at that point, Alan's dead.
Just eating nothing but bacon.
He's he's just dipping the bacon back in the grease and then eating it that way. In 2002, there was a plan because there had been some letters that had been saved through evidence. They pulled off the stamps off of the letters and they took the sticky side of the envelopes. They swabbed them and they were able to get a partial DNA composite of who it may have been. Mm-hmm. They then, through the autopsy, had taken some DNA from Alan's body so they could compare it to some things. And they compared it. It was inconclusive. I would say that it would most definitely be inconclusive because the deterioration and the fact that it was only a partial DNA sample that they got, let alone...
The saliva off a stamp that had been placed on there with other adhesive materials
In 1969.
in 1969, not knowing what some of those chemicals probably did to actual like DNA and everything like that.
Well, and there's a chance that he didn't lick them. There's a chance that he ran them underwater or anything like that. I mean, I know people today that still... You don't have to lick stamps anymore, obviously, but people don't like licking the back of the envelope. You've seen the sponge that people run
They
around.
have envelope
them.
moistener.
Oh, do they?
Moistener.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, they do. It's just it looks like a fucking glue stick, except it has somewhat sticky, like liquid adhesive, and you just put it on envelopes and it seals them.
Yeah, so were you accidentally pulling DNA from somebody that had handled the letter? I don't see that going the same
He could
way.
have had someone lick the stamp for him. He could have sent him from when he was at work and been like, "These things make me sick." I heard a thing where they were like, it's as simple as like he could have told someone, "Hey, these make me kind of nauseous, and the chemicals on them. Can you just like put these on here for me?"
Yeah, just something super simple.
Not even written anything on there. He could have gone to one person, got a whole bunch of envelopes, and said, "Hey, I'm getting ready to send out invitations or some kind of bullshit," and be like, "Can you go ahead and just put a whole bunch of stamps on here for me, and then I'll fill them out later and get them sent out."
Yeah, there's a number of reasons it could have come back inconclusive. The handwriting I found fairly interesting. Mm-hmm. They did handwriting samples of Alan that came back that didn't match. They didn't just do one handwriting sample, they did two handwriting samples for his right and his left because he was ambidextrous. So he could write with both hands. His friend that dropped the dime about the watch and then about the murder novel had said that he always remembers him writing with his right hand, but he believed that he could make his left hand write almost as eloquently. I don't throw a whole lot of weight behind any of this stuff because I don't think a handwriting analysis... I believe you could fake a handwriting analysis very easily.
There's also a theory that says, I don't know how much study has been done behind it between like serial killers and stuff like that, but people with dual personalities or a split in their personalities can actually develop things that manifest as a physical effect, and the style in which you're writing can actually be impacted by that if that other personality has either taken over or is influencing you, or you're in a certain frame of mind.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure schizophrenia probably would do that to you as well. If
You're a sadist.
That too, yeah. Mm-hmm. So these not matching really don't seem like a big shock to me.
Everything else matches up too much. It's got to be.
Yeah, it has to be him. There's been other suspects that have been brought forward by family members like, well, my stepdad did this, or my
there's been books written about that shit.
just tons of different things. But Alan just hits so perfectly well for me. And I don't see that there was anything else. And this is another thing, just like Jack, where we still to this day don't know who Jack was.
Yeah,
and that was
definitively.
1800s. And now, fast forward to this, just like there's people that are ripperologists, there's people that study the Zodiac the exact same way, just to try to figure it out and to crack the code. I'd like to think that it's still for good reasons. I also think that there's probably a lot of people out there that just like puzzles.
Oh, yeah.
And want to figure it out. Like, they don't understand the impact that this guy had.
And who knows, maybe that last cipher, or only two of them have been solved up to this point. So maybe somewhere in the other two, if they ever get solved, if there is even anything to solve in them, that actually provides the identity of it.
Judging by the amount of times that he lied about telling them who he was, like the first cipher, when he said if you crack the first cipher, you'd be able to figure it out. I don't think that he would have been that dumb. But also, if he knew that it was going to be...
me that a serial killer is going to be dishonest.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like he sort of beat the system. I think that this was just a perfect mix. I think I said it at the beginning of the podcast. I don't think that this guy was a serial killer because he liked killing. I think he was a serial killer because he wanted the fame. I think he wanted people to know who he was, and he wanted people to fear him. And his means of doing it wasn't like robbing banks or anything. He went straight to the worst thing that he could think of.
I think it's a combination of the two. I think he got enjoyment out of both, that rush out of both the act of it, and then also what he considered the accolades or the fame that accompanied it.
Yeah.
So, but hey, yeah, guess what? Case closed. We solved it.
Yeah, if anybody ever asks you about the serial killer or the Zodiac Killer, or says, I wonder if they ever caught that guy, just tell him he died in 1994, 92.
All right, man. Got anything else?
Besides just how happy I was that you decided we'd do a serial killer again. They're just so much fun, and they're not fun.
That twinkle in your eye.
Yeah. This, I think, is sort of a perfect serial killer to do. I still want to do BTK and different things like that. Unfortunately, the amount of gore and blood in them kind of gets tough, I think, to listen and take. I sort of forget sometimes that other people get really weirded out by this stuff, and I don't blame them. I think that that's a perfectly healthy reaction to hear somebody getting disemboweled. But we're going to do more. You guys seem to like these. You guys really, really like the Jack episode. I hope you like this one just as much. We're probably not going to be doing these super frequently, but it's always good to throw in the rotation because
they're fun.
Yeah, they are fun to do.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us on another episode. We will catch you next week. Take it easy.
Peace.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us for another episode. If you like what you heard, hit that subscribe and like button. Follow us. If you didn't like what you heard, still hit that anyway because we'll probably cover something in the future that you do like. Please follow us on our social media. Adam, hit them with it.
Our Instagram is Historically High Pod, Historically High POD, and we are on Twitter at Historically High. That's Historically HI.
All right. And if you guys want to send in any feedback, suggestions, hit us up on those two, or you can even do it on Gmail. It's historicallyhighpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks again.
Peace.